Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto arrives at Marineford in One Piece harem. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by xXCoopyXx and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter number 01, The End for New Beginning. At the Valley of the End here we find two wounded warriors. One is a quite tall teen, though some would mistake him for an adult due to his feral side. He has long spiky sun-kissed hair with small bangs down the side of his face that shines throughout the barren wasteland that was once a beautiful land. He has three whisker-like markings on each side of his cheek that make him resemble the looks of a fox, and his bright blue eyes that from time to time change red and slitted. He is 6'2" feet tall and has a horrible orange jumpsuit on that is now ragged due to the battle that has taken place. As he glares down at his opponent, this boy was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, his father is Minato Namikaze, and mother Kushina Uzumaki, as they were both feared throughout the land due to their overwhelming power that could rival the two-tailed beast. On the other side of the field no one would care about except a pink-haired Sakura, one of Naruto's teammate, her soon-to-be ex-teammate, who is currently bleeding out with tears streaming down her face while staring at Naruto's opponent, who turns out to be Sasuke Uchiha. The last remaining man of his clan, he has a grey robe wrapped around his body and a purple snake-like belt that wraps around his waist, his hair jet black and in the shape of a duck's, but his eyes were in the Mangekyo Sharingan form and he was also glaring daggers at Naruto. "This is over, Sasuke, I'm never gonna let you finish Madara's work." Naruto coughed as he began going through hand signs that made Sasuke's eyes widen with slight fear as he began to back away slightly. "Stop it, dope, you're not thinking straight," he shouted as he went through hand signs with him. However, he stumbled when he heard Naruto call out his final move. "Using Inga no Jutsu, Sacrificial Seal Jutsu," he shouted as he slammed his palms on the ground and a small black hole began to form in front of him as Naruto and Sasuke were dragged into the black hole as the area around them was left in complete silence as the two ex-teammates were now nowhere to be seen as the black hole was now gone, with Kakashi looking at the spot where the black hole once was as a single tear went down his eye. "Somewhere nowhere. Kid, wake up. Kid." Kurama the Kyuubi inside him shouted as Naruto slowly began to open his eyes. "Oh, shut it, furball, my head hurts enough as it is." Naruto moaned in pain as he looked around and noticed he was in some sort of void or limbo. As he looked around, he noticed the body parts scattered around the place as he raised an eyebrow. "Hey Kurama, how come we never ended up like that?" he said as he pointed at the head of Sasuke and looked that his eyes were still open. "Well, I had to do something that I figured you would be pissed off at me if I told you," Kurama said nervously. "Oh, and what would that be?" he asked. Demanded. "Wow kid, calm down, I had no choice but to turn you into a Hanyo, half-demon," Kurama said with a sad chuckle, expecting for Naruto to start shouting at him, but to his surprise Naruto looked happy. "Wow, really? That's so cool, now I am a bit like you," Naruto said as he examined his body and noticed he had an orange fox tail and ears with white tips and his whiskers also became a bit more dense to make him look more feral than before. His fangs had become a bit longer and his body had grown a few more inches and more bulky, which made his orange suit look too tight for him to wear anymore. "Well, not that I'm complaining, Kurama, what can we do in a void, or for that matter how do we get out?" he asked as he entered his mindscape, which was no longer a sewer but a lush green forest, and he sees the fox lying down in his favorite place under a tree. "Well kid, we will be able to get out in maybe 1 to 3 days and we will probably be heading to a complete different world, so in that time, I am going to help you in controlling your demon half," he says as he grins evilly at him with a mad crackling laugh which caused Naruto to sweat drop while looking at the fox. "Geez, thanks you old ass fox," Naruto grumbled as he sat down in a meditating position. "So how many tails will I have?" Asking this, Kurama looked at him and grinned. "Well kid, you will have every tail that I have, plus my chakra will come back to me once you have all 9, but to you all 9 tails worth of my chakra will be stored in your one tail, and you might end up living as long as me too." Naruto chuckled as he looked at Kurama. "Well, at least you will stay with me," Kurama smiled back at him, or grinned depending on your point of view. "Well, let's get started because this is going to be fun for me," he chuckles as Naruto stood up and begun to crack his bones in his body, indicating that he was ready, but if you looked closer at his face, you would be able to tell that he was a few shades paler. "Let's do this then." Time skipped 3 days. Naruto looked around as the area around him began to shake and another black hole suddenly appeared beneath his feet and sucked him in. However, the last thing you heard him say was, "Ooh no, I'm going to get another headache." Unknown pirate ship. "Ai was the sound of our blonde hero who only a few moments ago came flying through the black hole which opened up in the sky, and now he is falling towards water, which is as far as the eye can see, except for one ship that is just a few moments ago." "Hajabunshin no Jutsu," Naruto shouted as he was falling. A clone poofed into existence and grabbed Naruto and spun him round and threw him towards the ship and he went flying through the deck of the ship. "What the hell was that?" one of the men on the ship shouted. This could be interesting. A man with 3 scars down his left eye, a black cape around his body and red hair, said as he looked down in the hole with a smirk and raised eyebrow as he got up and began to walk towards the big hole in his ship. As he was walking towards the hole, he heard a groaning sound and saw bits of planks being thrown out of the hole as they seen a young adult rubbing the back of his head as I slowly stood up to reveal his face to the people of the ship. "Damn the hurt," he said as he rubbed the back of his head until he realized where he was and looked up at the red-haired man and chuckled a bit. "He's sorry about that," he said as he got out from the hole in his ship. That was until he heard the whole crew burst out in laughter and looked over to the guy in red hair again. "What?" he shouted, and then the red-haired man rubbed his eyes a bit from laughing. "Oh, you're not normal kid," he said and chuckled a bit as Naruto's eyebrow twitched slightly at being called a kid. "So?" he asked as he cracked his back. That made some of the other crew members cringe at. "Hey, what's your name, kid?" he asked. That was until Naruto narrowed his eyes at him a bit and sighed and went into his mindscape for a moment. "Hey Kirk, can we trust him?" he asked as he looked at his soon-to-be lifetime friend who was currently rubbing a claw under his chin. "Yeah, you can trust him, kid. I don't sense any evil or ill intent coming from this man, though it kind of peeves me off that he has red hair." Naruto burst out laughing in his mindscape as he smiled towards the redhead. "Hey, cherry head, name's Naruto," he hummed as he laughed as he seen the red-haired man's eyebrow twitch until he smirked back. "Nice to meet you, Goldilocks. I am Shanks, though people who don't like me call me the pirate red-haired Shanks for my title," he laughed back, and soon the both of them had their arms around each other. "I like you," Naruto said as he chuckled. "My mother had a similar nickname to you, only a lot more scary." He laughed as he seen Shanks shiver a bit. "Oh, and what was her title?" he asked out of curiosity and paled a bit when he saw Naruto's smirk. "Well, she was known as Red Hot Habanero to her allies or friends, and to her enemies she was known as the Red Death." Naruto laughed more as he seen most of Shanks' crew shiver, and then he pointed towards Shanks. "Hey, by the way, since you're a pirate, does that mean you are good or bad?" he asked as he sat down on the ground. Shanks just shook his head as he went to the banister of the ship and laid back on it. "Depends on what you mean, kid. There are 2 kinds of pirates, and if I'm guessing the one you're thinking of is the ones that pillage villages, kill and rape families and all that other stuff?" he asked as all he got from Naruto was a nod. "Well, we are the other kind, the kind that lurk the seas out of freedom and adventure, and mainly for the sole purpose of wanting to become the king of the pirates." He was going to continue until a sea king appeared from out of the water and about to attack the ship, but wasn't able to as Shanks' arm turned black and shiny as he flashed towards the creature and punched it in the cheek, sending it flying across the sea. After the battle with the giant fish, Naruto waked towards the captain and asked him and pointed towards his arm. "Hey, what was that you used?" he asked as Shanks turned towards the man as he chuckled a bit. "Oh, that was Conqueror's Haki. It goes black to show you have learnt it, and when full mastered you are able to punch a battleship and it will most likely explode and you would walk away without a scratch," he said with a laugh at his new friend's gobsmacked expression. Then he grinned at Shanks. "Hey, if you can teach me all Haki, I will teach you some of my tricks that will make devil fruits look like child's play." He smirked as he remembered Kurama telling him about most of the things on this world. Like the 2 kinds of pirates, world government, warlords and emperors, and he already knew Shanks was an emperor. This caught Shanks' attention with a raised eyebrow and a smirk back towards Naruto. "Sure, Naruto, but Conqueror's Haki is different from the others as only 100 people per 10 years get Haki, and I want you to show me what you mean by making devil fruits look like child's play," he said as he saw Naruto get in a stance that show his legs spread and his arms curled into fists as he closed his eyes and told Kurama to help with releasing half his Kai, killing intent as he did so, and to his surprise, he only saw Shanks buckle his legs a bit towards the pressure and saw nearly all his crew wither out cold or on one knee. "I'm sorry about that. I would have used all of it, but I would have killed some of your crew." Naruto then went to form a Rasen shuriken and threw it towards the sea that ended up creating a huge explosion that made some of the ancient weapons look like toys. As he wiped a bit of sweat from his forehead, he looked over to Shanks and smirked. "Well, I can't teach you that, but there might be something that I can't teach you which is in my opinion much cooler." He chuckled as he formed a familiar hand sign and 20 clones appeared from smoke. "So what you think?" he asked with a bit of hopefulness in his voice. After a while, Shanks managed to control his amazed face and look over to Naruto. "There is definitely a high possibility that you will be able to learn Haki within 3 to 4 years, but look on the bright side, we will party like no other crew has before." He shouted with pride in his words which made Naruto sweat drop but smile. "Sure, I'd love to." That was until Shanks blinked a bit and looked at Naruto. "Hey, do you have anything planned after the 3 or 4 years training?" he asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto looked over to him with a smile and said a simple nope. As he laughed as Shanks and his crew face vaulted, and after he regained his composure, he looked at Naruto seriously, which Naruto noticed and turned serious. "Also, I want you to join a kid which I would treat like my own, but us pirates all have to go our separate ways if we live on the sea," he said with a sad smile, as I thought about a certain green-haired barmaid. Anyway, I want you to look for a kid by the name of Luffy, and after the training I want you to join his crew, and besides he pulled out 2 posters, one was of Nami the cat burglar and Nico Robin the demon child, as he suddenly heard something he would never want to expect to hear. He heard Kurama in his mindscape get blown back by a nosebleed, so Naruto only muttered one word. "Hero Fox." He laughed as he suddenly went through some hand signs to perform a complex summoning jutsu, and in a red poof of smoke there lay a red-orange fox on his back with blood running down his nose. "Well, since the fox seems to like them, and I'm going to stay here for a long time, might as well tell you my story." One long-ass story later. Here we find Naruto sitting in the kitchen with a big cup of sake and Shanks next to him, who had steam out of his ears with Yasopp and his right hand holding him back from finding Naruto's village and burning it to the ground. Not that he would find it, Naruto could only smile his true smile at Shanks and hugged him after a while, telling him thank you after a while. We now see Shanks and Kurama in a corner, looking over some of the hottest pirates in the world, while on the outside Naruto was grumbling things like her being a pervert, but on the inside he was smiling that Kurama could finally be himself, even if it was a huge pervert, as Naruto looked and seen Yasopp walking towards him, as Naruto gave him a friendly wave. "Hey Naruto, I got a favor to ask ya," he heard Yasopp say as he looked over to him with a raised eyebrow, to show him he was listening well. "I've got a kid, his name is Usopp and he's part of Luffy's crew, and well I want you and Usopp to have these," he says, handing Naruto 2 sets of 2 revolvers. One set has your name inscribed, and the other has Usopp's. "I want you to give him this too." He hands Naruto 18 letters, that's for all his birthdays. Naruto laughs a bit, but nods and looks over to Shanks. His eye begins to twitch again, as he sees him and Kurama out cold on the deck with blood running down their noses and wanted posters scattered over their body. "Damn it, you two, get a hold of yourselves, you pervs." Naruto shouts with a big sweat drop as he waves off Yasopp. "Sure, I'll give him these, just remind me when I leave, because I am gonna be here a long time." He chuckles as he turns his attention back towards the captain, who is currently rubbing the blood off his nose. "Hey Shanks, do you know if we will be heading to any island anytime soon?" He asks as Shanks looks over to Naruto and nods. "Yes, we will be heading to Alabasta soon, and you might even see Luffy and get to know your soon-to-be captain, but you have to finish your training first." Shanks laughs as he begins walking towards the captain's quarters. Naruto turns towards the front of the ships and looks up into the distance of the never-ending sea of blue, which in his opinion was beautiful. He then sat in a meditating position as he enters his mindscape to see Kurama, who had went back into his mindscape when he passed out due to blood loss. "Hey Kur, so this is gonna be a new adventure for the both of us, huh?" He asks as he opens a mental link with Kurama, who was still looking at the posters and then looked over to Naruto with a smile. "Yup, me and you can finally act how we have always wanted to without me having an Uchiha on my ass and without the villagers on your ass. This is going to be a much more fun life for the both of us, so we might as well make the most of it since we are going to live forever." Kurama laughs as he goes back to looking at the posters. That was until Naruto took the posters that caught his eye earlier. The first was Nami. She has bright orange hair that flows down to her waist, light skin, and a cute face that would make any model jealous of, and in the poster you could only see she was wearing a bikini, which showed of her impressive bust that made Naruto have a small nosebleed and mentally curse Kurama and Jiraiya for infecting him with their pervert natures as he leaves his mindscape and lies back against the deck and stares at the clouds, which caused a certain ninja to sneeze as he gave of a happy sigh. A new journey, huh? This is going to be interesting. 3 weeks later. It has been 3 weeks since Naruto has landed on Shanks' ship, and he can happily say that being a pirate is the coolest thing since wanting to becoming Hokage, and he is looking forward to getting his first bounty, and he was surprised when he seen that Shanks was worth 850 million Beely, and when Shanks told him about Luffy's dad's bounty, he ended up falling off the ship, although he didn't land in the water, thanks to using his chakra. Much to the shock of the crew, but they just shrugged it off, saying that they have seen some shit, which made Naruto and Kurama nod their heads along with them. After all, they did end up fighting 3 type of gods or close to that of a god. However, now we find Naruto walking along the water towards a desert island. As far as the island can see, a few days back Shanks' ship docked at the island and told Naruto to stay here for a few days and that they would come and pick him up, and Shanks ordered Naruto not to tell Luffy that he was here and that he could only meet up with him if he was stronger or at least learned how to use his haki. So now here he is walking along a barren wasteland of sand. "Hey Kur, can you sense any life nearby?" Naruto asked as he walked like a zombie across the scorching sand. "Shut up kid, you asked me that 5 minutes ago and I told you to keep heading the way you are going. And besides, Luffy is in that direction and you can test out your observation haki, which Shanks said he would teach you first." Kurama growled a bit as he mumbled stuff about impatient brat. Naruto could only nod and sigh in defeat. However, that was until he found a huge hole and suddenly fell in it. "Ah yeah." Naruto screamed as he fell down the dark hole which seemed to go on for a while until he came flying down into a large room that would remind most people of the Egyptians, and the candles suddenly lit around him. However, these were not ordinary candle, these were mysterious candles because the flames were blue and had black tinges in them, which end up drawing Naruto in, and for some reason he was sure he could hear Kurama purr. Just thinking that sent shivers up Naruto's spine. As Naruto looked around the ancient room, he came across a big stone door which had some weird symbols of a fox. He thought, "Hey Kur, you know anything about this?" he asked as he looked around the door and noticed two palm-like patterns on the door. "I don't, but I really like the feel of this power that is behind this door, and it's drawing us both in towards it, which makes me drool at the thought of it." Kurama giggled, which caused Naruto to freak out at the fox a bit, but Naruto could only nod along with the fox, as the power did make him shiver in delight and want to jump the power at a moment's notice, so he put his palms on the patterns, and after a few moments the door began to rumble and move as some of the dust and sand dropped off the door and caused Naruto to cough a bit and wave his hand around to clear the view and hide his face as he slowly walked inside the door, which led to a corridor. Although, as he began to walk down the hallway, the same blue flames lit up as he continued to walk down the hallway. Naruto came to a huge opening of the ancient place, which surprisingly looked a lot cleaner than the other parts of the place, as there was no dust or sand. However, something in the middle of the room caught his attention, which made Naruto's and Kurama's eyes widen comically that they nearly fell over, because in the middle of the room was a pedestal, and on that pedestal was what caught our adventurer's attention. This immediately made him begin to walk towards what was a devil fruit, and this devil fruit was exactly how Shanks had described them, and he said that they were meant to be 3x the size of an apple or something like that. Although, and he also said that all of the fruits have their own specific color, and this devil fruit was dark blue, with black tips on the edges of the fruit. "Hey Kur, I don't know about you, but this fruit looks tempting to eat, and I wanna know why this fruit has been drawing us towards it," he says as he slowly picks up the fruit and examines the fruit. "Hey kid, I say you eat it if I remember correctly. While I was searching through the book of devil fruits, that fruit right there is the strongest fire logia there is, and is powerful enough to surpass Whitebeard when used right," Kurama said, and almost drooled at the fruit as Naruto widened his eyes at it slightly. "Oh, so what fruit is it then?" he asked as he slowly began to lick the top of the fruit while having slight daydreams about the fruit's power. "It's called the Fukusafeya, you know me, foxfire fruit," he says as he chuckles. "Just call it foxfire fruit for now, it's far too long for my liking," Kurama says as he watches Naruto burst out laughing for a second. "Oh, I should have known this would have attracted us since you are a fox, and I am currently half fox. It's only right that a foxfire which has the name fox in it would attract us both," he laughs as he rubs his chin, wondering if he should pay the price for not being able to swim. However, that thought was thrown out the window after what Kurama says. "Hey kid, don't worry about not being able to swim, you usually only walk on water anyways," he laughs as he watches Naruto swallow the giant fruit in one bite as Kurama looked at Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Kurama's words were cut off when Naruto's left hand was suddenly engulfed in blue flames with black tips similar to the flames on the candles, which made Naruto feel a lot more warmer, and the flames just felt right to him as he began walking towards the exit to the tomb while playing around with his flames and his tail, unconsciously waggling with excitement and giggling a bit. "I can't wait to see the look on Shanks' face when he sees this," he laughs, and Kurama could only smirk at Naruto as he slowly exited the tomb and began to walk towards the place that Kurama told him before. However, this time Naruto could feel a similar power to his close by, which made Naruto very curious about it, but he just shrugged it off and began to walk towards the city. Chapter end. Meeting the Straw Hats. Here we find Naruto walking towards the city of Alabaster with his new attire. Well, he would be wearing a plain shirt, but before he got the fruit he got rid of it, and now he is wearing a black cape, similar to Shanks. However, Naruto's cape has blue flames at the bottom, and Hess also wearing dark blue shorts with a dark orange satchel over his shoulder, and a blue-black holster that holds his revolvers and another slot in case he ever decides that he wants a sword and some combat boots. If you can probably guess, Naruto is still playing around with his devil fruit powers and at the moment only thought of one move to use with it and is now currently staring at the flames in his hand as he walks along the hot sand as he lets out a content sigh. "Oh, I'm so glad my devil fruit powers stop me from feeling heat and fire," he says as looks forward to what looks to be the kingdom of Alabaster finally. He shouts as he runs off towards the city, leaving a trail of blue flames in his way. "Wow, I feel like Sonic." He laughs as he notices the blue flames behind him, although as he continues to run, he notices a woman with black hair in the distance that caught Naruto's attention, and he begins to walk towards her with his hands behind his head in a carefree attitude. As he walked towards the woman, his eyes widened slightly as he reached for his satchel and pulled out some posters and read over it. "Nico Robin Demon Child 80 million. Over with Robin, she is currently looking at the markings on the side of a destroyed structure, and to Naruto's surprise it's the same markings as the ones he's seen in the tomb, as Hey Robin heard someone say, and she tensed slightly as she turned round and came face to face with our blonde sage Hey. She said as she had her arms crossed to show she was in her stance tres fleur. She shouts as 3 arms suddenly sprout around Naruto and hold him from moving. However, Naruto did not even flinch. The only course of action he showed was a raised eyebrow. What do you want, she asks as she holds him in position, though Naruto just sighs. I noticed you were looking at the markings on the wall of a fox, he replies as he jerks a bit from her, tightening her hold on him. What do you know about this? She says, oh, just a certain devil fruit. He chuckles as he sees her eyes widen, and just as she was about to tighten her hold, his flames suddenly engulf his whole body, disabling the hold that Robin had on him. Foxfire. She gasps as she calms down due to the warm aura the flames emit. Yeah, if you're looking for the fruit you're a bit late, since the fruit chose me, he said as he lit one of his fingers on fire. By the way, do you know where the Straw Hats are? He asked as Naruto began to walk towards her. As he looked her over and her attire cute, he chuckled as he seen a tint of pink on her cheek, but she wondered what he looked like since the cape covered most of his face due to having his hood up. What do you want with the Straw Hats? She asked as she tried to look at his face in turn. All she could see was the huge grin on his face. Well, I will be joining his crew in a few years, so I thought it'd come meet him early, he says, which caused Robin to become even more shocked, but before she could ask why, a man in a straw hat was sent flying past Naruto, who narrowed his eyes as he turned his attention to the guy wearing the straw hat, and then he noticed a guy with a hook come out with his lower body covered in sand. Hey Sandman, don't go killing my soon-to-be captain, Naruto roared as his flames spiked. However, before he could attack the hook guy, he felt a similar power to his own again, which to his surprise, sent a shiver of delight up his spine. As with the straw hat guy, he groggily stood up as he had blood down the side of his head and was heavily injured as he looked over and the cloaked figure who he thought was Shanks, until he seen his hair and the blue flames on the bottom of the cape. Time to try out my first move of my newfound power, he whispers as the cloak covers all of his face, except the huge grin on his face, as he aims his finger at the Sandman. Yo no bullet, he whispers again, as his finger shoots out a blue flame towards his opponent, which the flame could not be tracked with the normal eye due to the speed the flame was traveling, and hit the Sandman in his gut, sending him flying into a nearby wall. As he turns his attention towards the Straw Hat Boy and lifts his hood from his head, are you Monkey D. Luffy? He asked as he walked towards him, as his palm turned green as he put his hand on his body, which caused the boy to tense a bit but relax after a while due to his wounds no longer hurting. Yes, Luffy, and gonna become the king of the pirates. Shh. He laughs as he puts his hat back on his head. Naruto was about to ask him something until sand begun to pick up around the area and he heard a voice. Molly no storm, the man shouted as his sand picked up into a small tornado and began to make its way towards Naruto. Insolent fool, how dare you attack me, he shouted as Naruto formed a small Rasen shuriken in his hand and threw it towards the storm, causing the storm to become nullified. Will you stop interrupting me, crocodile? Naruto shouted as he shot hundreds of foxfire bullets towards the now named crocodile. As he was doing so, he didn't notice a man with a cowboy-like hat come out into the opening, with his eyes Naruto with a huge grin on his face, as crocodile shot off towards Naruto, surprising him a bit as he punched him in the cheek, sending him back a few feet. As he regained his composure, he felt the same power as before and turned towards the guy wearing the cowboy hat. Ace. He heard Luffy shout as he returned the smirk towards Ace and began to walk towards him while wiping the blood of his lip. As Ace began to do the same, as they came face to face, they locked arms with each other and orange and blue flames suddenly started to flash between the two, sending a shock wave to anyone who came near them, which is what Crocodile was trying to do until he was blasted back. Inside the flames you can see Naruto and Ace still looking at each other and grinning like madmen. I knew I felt a familiar power close by, they said in unison. Hey, so you're Luffy's brother with the Mir no Mi fruit, Naruto said as he got an idea as he noticed the flames seemed to fuse into a purple flame with an orange tint. Hey, how about we try something, Naruto said as Ace also noticed the flames and already knew what Naruto was going to ask as they both aimed their arms in the direction of Crocodile, who was currently sweating bullets, as they both shouted Yo Amir no beam. They both shouted as a huge orange-tinted purple beam shot out from their palms and the beam covered Crocodile as he screamed in pain. As Naruto and Ace were left sweating a bit due to never using a fusion devil fruit attack, as they looked towards the now unconscious Crocodile. He gave Ace a fist bump. Name's Naruto, he grins as Ace smirks back. Name's Ace, or my nickname is Fire Fist Ace, he laughed as he noticed Naruto raised an eyebrow. Yeah, don't tell Luffy, but Shanks told me about you, Sabo and Luffy, he chuckled as he noticed Ace choke a bit. Yeah, after 3 or 4 years he'll be joining Luffy on his crew, but at the moment I am learning how to control my devil fruit power and hockey, he says as Ace smirks. Hey, if you want during your time on your training trip, I'd be glad to help out a fellow fire type devil fruit user, and I bet Marco would love to meet you. After all, our meeting was similar with me and Marco. Although he just wanted to butt heads at first at this, Naruto's smile widened as he laughed a bit. Oh, you mean Phoenix boy? Yeah, I'll be glad to meet him, and I'll tell Shanks that I'll be coming over to see Whitebeard about the training. Ace just shook him off and laughed a bit at the nickname for Marco as they both turned their attention towards Luffy, who was currently talking with some of his crew members and a girl with blue hair as him and Ace began to walk towards them with Naruto's cape swirling behind him, making him look even more badass. Hey Luffy, Naruto and Ace shouted in unison again, which caused the two to butt heads. Stop that, they said again now. They both said Agent, but then they just burst out laughing along with the other people who were there. Yeah, what can I do for you? Luffy asked as he sat down with his legs crossed. Naruto just smiled at Luffy. Yeah, I want to join your crew in 3 to 4 years time, Naruto said as the rest of the Straw Hats appeared and looked towards Naruto with his cloak now overshadowing his eyes as Luffy just laughed. Shushi, well, you act really similar to my brother, so I'm welcome to let you join, but what is your dream? Luffy asked seriously as Naruto just let out a sad sigh. By the time I join your crew, my dream will already be accomplished, he said as Luffy just nodded and smiled. Okay, I'll see you in 3 to 4 years, he said as the rest of the Straw Hats introduced themselves to him with open arms, well, except Zoro and Sanji, who were still a bit weary of him. Alabaster Kingdom, the feast. Naruto is currently sitting in one of the seats in the royal feast chamber as he scoffs down bowl after bowl of ramen as fast as Luffy can eat meat, which surprised Luffy and the crew, although Luffy was too busy eating. Naruto and Luffy both lay back in their chairs, patting their bloated bellies with a content sigh. Then Naruto immediately remembered something and looked over towards Usopp, who looked the split and double of his father, who was currently eating or at least trying to do to Luffy. Stealing all the food. Naruto waved at him to come over as Usopp noticed Naruto waving at him. He was skeptical at first but walked towards him nonetheless and Naruto whispered in his ear, hey, are Usopp's kid? He asked as Usopp was just about to yell but was stopped when Naruto covered his mouth with his own hand. Shhhhh, I don't want Luffy to find out that I've been on Shanks' ship yet, and if Shanks found out he'd kill me, which it's why I'm only telling you this as Usopp gave me something to give to you since he was never there for you, Naruto said as he handed Usopp the revolver and the letters. Thank you, Naruto, Usopp said, who was on the verge of bursting into tears as Robin looked towards Usopp, who slowly left the room and then turned her attention back towards Naruto, who went to cleaning his revolver, who ended up sulking a bit, saying things like I never got to use it, which made Robin giggle a bit, which caught Naruto's attention and made him look at her and smile. What? He asked as he gave her his rare foxy grin, which caused Nami, who was stared at Naruto, to listen to the conversation to blush a bit, as well as Robin, who looked away for a bit before turning back to Naruto. Well, do you know why the devil fruit chose you? She said as the whole room went silent as Naruto let out a small sigh and said, well, since I'm going to be with you, I might as well show you my true form and my story, he said as he dispelled the Genjutsu to show his now blue tail and ears with black tips as he started to explain about Kurama and how he is a Hanyo, which got an unexpected reaction from the girls and boy. Luffy and Ace had stars in their eyes and Sanji and Zoro were grinning while the girls were now blushing red at how kawaii they looked in their eyes, which did not go unnoticed by Naruto, who in the end also ended up blushing a bit as he also told them that he wasn't going to let Kurama out because he was more perverted than Sanji. This caused him to get a glare from him, which Naruto just shrugged off and told Sanji that he was drooling blood from his nose and that if he let him out he would probably jump Nami and Robin, which caused the two to growl a bit, which caused Naruto to hold up his hands. Hey, now I'm only protecting the two lovely ladies, he sighed in relief at the reactions, which was a blush, which in turn caused both girls to think the same thing. My heart is beating fast, Hess, so hot, the two thought, and ended up blushing more. But Naruto's conversation with the ladies were over due to a call for Luffy. Hey Naruto, what's your devil fruit called, he asked as Naruto looked at Luffy with a deadpan. Did you not hear me call out my move? Well, in any case, it's Foxfire. It's apparently the strongest fire Loja, but I'm not one to judge since mine and Ace's fusion attack was awesome, he said with pride in his voice as Ace nodded along with him, who pumped out his chest as the two males began to laugh again with their arms around each other's shoulders, saying stuff like fire is the best and other things related to fire as Naruto's den mushi began to ring. He guys, this might be my teacher, so I'm gonna have to take it privately, especially not in front of Luffy, he said as he walked out the door and put a firewall up and a privacy barrier and lifted the den mushi out of his pocket. Clank. Hey, what's up, Shanks? He asked as the den mushi that looked like Shanks began to talk. Naruto, we're back from our trip and we are waiting for you, but you better hurry cause we got the Marines on our ass, he said as Naruto just smiled. Sure, just let me say bye to the Straw Hats and I can definitely say the girls are much hotter than what they look like on the poster, he teased as you could hear Shanks begin to splutter innocent words, which caused Naruto to laugh more as he just Smirked. Oh, and I've got a surprise to show you when I get back that I know is gonna be the funniest thing for me, Naruto said as he finished up the call with his teacher. He walked back and disabling the fire and seal. Well, guys, I'm gonna have to go now, since my teacher has had a run-in with a Navi, and I need to get back, so I'll see you in a few years. Okay, bye, he said, with one last foxy grin and winked towards the girls as he flash-stepped away, leaving blue flames and a star-eyed Luffy, Usopp and Ace and a blushing Nami, Robin and Vivi. Naruto wondered as he just shrugged it off as he began to flash-step towards the ship. But red-haired pirates. Damn it, where is he? Shanks shouts as he activated his haki to his sword and swung his sword bold UNSARBYEOGR at dawn. Shanks shouted as he slashed his sword downwards, and a bright red beam cut one of the battleships in half. Just then a blue flame morphed into Naruto, who was now on one knee, sweating a bit. I'm here now, go. Naruto shouted as Shanks began to give out orders, but he was wondering about the blue flames he just seen. He reminded himself to ask later, but right now he was too focused on getting away from the Marines, he thought, as Naruto summoned some clones to help Shanks' crew move the ship. As Usopp pulled out his rifle Tulipul Nalkalin CHONG triple sharpshoot, he shouted as 3 cannonballs that were going to hit the back of the ship suddenly exploded mid-air. The ship then began to move at a fast pace as Naruto lied back against the mass. Oh, this is gonna be a long chase, he sighed as he summoned Kurama. Go have some fun, he muttered, as over the next few hours, Kurama was in his full fox form, demolishing the other battleships like a child's toy. Somewhere at sea. Naruto is currently lying down on the deck snoring away as Shanks walks towards him. Hey Naruto, get up, he shouts as he kicks him in the side of the hip, walking him up and head-butting Shanks right in his family jewels, causing Shanks' eyes to roll in the back of his head and let out a girly scream. Oops, I'm sorry, Shanks. He laughs as Shanks' crew laugh along with him as they see their captain curl into a ball holding his privates. After Shanks recovered from his injury, he looks at Naruto and asks, what was with those blue flames earlier? I've never seen you use them before. He asked as he noticed Naruto grin back at him, which for some reason made Shanks nervous. Oh, that it was just my new devil fruit that has the ability to surpass Whitebeard, he says casually as he notices Shanks' eyes go wide as he looks at Naruto with a shocked expression. What fruit? He asked while his jaw was now on the floor as he notices Naruto's grin widen that to the size of a fox's foxfire. He says as he notices that Shanks can't take that shock anymore as he falls back unconscious, as well as some of the people who were listening to faint as well, which caused Naruto to laugh as he began to walk towards Usopp. Hey Usopp, I delivered your letters and present, as I can happily say you brought him to tears of joy, and he said he was happy that you still cared for him even though you're a pirate. He laughs as he notices Usopp begins to cry comically while rubbing his eyes, saying stuff like warriors don't cry. Which only made him laugh more as when Usopp was crying of joy he said the same thing. Naruto then turned around as he notices that Shanks called his name. It's time to start your training, he said as Naruto then looked away for a second, then back at Shanks. Hey, do you think you could train me for 2.5 years on my haki and let the Whitebeard pirates help me with my devil fruit? He asked as Shanks' eyes widened again as Naruto explained that he met Ace and he said he would help him with it, which caused Shanks to smile a bit and nod at his request. Time skip 2.5 years later. Here we find Naruto sitting on the mast of the red-haired pirate ship wearing the same attire as before, looking over. However, this time he had a sword holstered to see as he notices the seagull newspaper deliverer thing drop a newspaper of in front of him, which he opened and yawned as he began to look through the paper. However, his eyes widened on what was on the front page. What the hell is this? Naruto shouted as he dropped down from the mast and began to walk towards the captain's quarters as everyone who got close to Naruto were surprised by what happened to Naruto and wondered what was on the newspaper that made him this shocked and mad. But what shocked them even more was when he kicked the door down to Shanks' room. Shanks, we have a big problem. Naruto shouted as he threw the paper towards Shanks, who was currently behind his desk and hid the posters under his desk and caught the paper and began skimming through the paper as his eyes widened as big as Naruto's and had begun to leak his haki, in which didn't seem to faze Naruto anymore as they both walked outside and he looked towards Naruto. Hey Naruto, I want you to go ahead of us using your flash step and get there as fast as you can, he ordered as Naruto just nodded and disappeared in blue flames. As soon as Naruto was gone, Shanks began shouting orders set a course for Marineford. He shouted, I hope you two brats are okay, he thought as his crew got to work. Chapter end. The War on Marineford. Naruto can be seen flash-stepping across the ocean at high speed, just high enough to avoid being weakened by the water. Naruto currently has an emotionless face on the outside, but in his mindscape he is a nervous wreck. Damn it, damn it. Damn it, damn it. Naruto shouted as he was pacing in circles as Kurama just let out an irritated sign due to not being able to get any sleep or perv on the posters. Will you stop shouting and pacing and let me go to sleep? Kurama roared as he rubbed some of the sleep out of his eyes. What on earth is the matter with you? He shouted as he noticed that Naruto only acts panicked due to heavy circumstances and Kurama was slightly worried about that. Well, why don't you search my memories and see why I am panicking? Naruto shouted as he punched a nearby tree due to Naruto's mindscape looking a lot more pleasant, and over the years he was able to learn how to shape his mindscape to his own will. Kurama closed his eyes and began to scramble through Naruto's memories only a few moments ago, which when he found what he was looking for his red slit eyes suddenly widened as he let out a low growl. "Naruto, you better let me out when we get there." He roared as Naruto let out a dark chuckle. "Don't worry, Kura'll let you out. You can count on it," he laughed as he left his mindscape. Naruto looked back to see if he could still see Shanks' ship, however he ended up leaving him for dust. As he looked around through while flash stepping, he could only see water as far as the eye could see. "Hey Kur, can you pick up Ace's life signature anywhere?" he asked as Kurama closed his eyes and began to concentrate. "Keep heading the way you are going, and you should see an island in a few hours or so," Kurama said as he lied down so H could get as much sleep as possible before Naruto reaches Marineford. At Marineford, Ace is currently on his knees at the execution stone of Marineford. He is badly injured, and he no longer has his hat with sea prison stone handcuffs around his back and legs. His eyes are also being shadowed by his hair as he witnesses the three Mobius come onto shore. However, one was larger than the other two, indicating it was the flagship, and also because Whitebeard was at the front of the ship with his big palm in his grasp. "Go and save that brat." Newgate roared as he slammed the hilt of his weapon on the deck of the ship, creating a huge shock wave as his crew roared along with him and charged towards the Marines. "Ace." Luffy roared as he was standing next to Whitebeard in his gear second form. He then shot at the ship and joined in with Whitebeard's crew on the assault. "Gomu Gomu no jet gatling," he shouted as he began to fire fist after fist at the opposing force, sending the Marines hurling back. Marco then landed next to him. The whole of Marco's left hand was suddenly engulfed in blue flames like Naruto's, only a little brighter, and instead of black tips his head yellow. Marco was about the same size as Ace. He had short shaggy blonde hair like Naruto's, only a little darker. He had a purple vest on that was unzipped to show of his muscular body and a pair of long dark blue pants. He also had a tattoo of the Whitebeard insignia on his chest. "Hey kid, you're being too reckless," Marco growled as he turned into that of a blue and yellow phoenix and flew up into the sky while leaving a trail of flames over the Marines. But suddenly a tall man appeared in front of him, wearing a horrible white and yellow striped suit with sunglasses on. "Ooh, Marco, the Phoenix, going to have to take you in, even though it's scary," the man said as Marco shot off towards him. "Kizaru." He roared. "Light sword," Kizaru said as a long blade emerged from his hand as their attacks collided with Kizaru being on the defensive. Meanwhile, Luffy was currently running towards the tower while using every move he can think of to get past the Marines that are standing in his way. "Out of my way." He shouted. "Gomu Gomu no whip," Luffy shouted again as he stretched his foot out and wiped out more Marines. This continued on for hours with no side prevailing. However, both sides counted heavy losses. Luffy has been surrounded and the execution is about to take place as all eyes were now on the emotionless Ace. The two swords lashed down until Luffy shouted "Ace." Then time seemed to stop as all of the weak-minded Marines around him and the executioners suddenly dropped to the floor as Whitebeard smirked and raised an eyebrow. "Gru, that brat is an interesting one," Whitebeard laughed as he clenched his fist and slammed his fist into the air as white cracks began to form in the air where Whitebeard's fist is, and suddenly the ground on Marineford began to shake and huge cracks appear on the landscape. Monkey D. Garp suddenly appeared in front of Luffy. However, Luffy sent a right hook straight into Garp's jaw, sending him hurling into a nearby wall, shattering the wall into pieces as he jumped up to the execution platform to confront Ace Ivankov, then suddenly appeared behind Luffy. "Luffy, I got the key to Ace's handcuffs," he said as he threw the key towards Luffy and went back to fighting the Marines. However, before he could unlock the handcuffs, a huge golden hand came down in front of him, so Luffy expanded into a huge balloon and nullified the attack that came from the Fleet Admiral Sengoku, who was now in his Buddha form, who was knocked back a bit by the block. Ace had tears down his face as he looked up at Luffy while he was putting the lock into the keyhole on his cuffs, and as soon as the cuffs fell of his arms and legs, his flames suddenly shot out at all directions, only avoiding Luffy, who was now side by side with his brother. All of the Whitebeard pirates were cheering and roaring, shouting things like "Ace is free. And we have won." Luffy and Ace then begun to make their way down the tower, taking out anyone who got in their way. That was until Akainu landed right in front of them with his eyes shadowing his eyes as he clenched his fists and his hands were suddenly engulfed in lava and shot lava dogs towards Luffy and Ace. "Maramara no fire fist," Ace shouted as he punched the lava dogs away without getting burned through to him, and Akainu technically being similar fruits. However, the admiral suddenly started shooting lava in the air, so they came shooting down towards Ace and Luffy like meteors. "Maramara no fire gun," Ace shouted. Again, and flames shot at the balls of magma. However, he winced a bit when some of the magma scraped onto his cheek. Luffy was growling in frustration due to not being able to help Ace fight the admiral. "Damn it," he shouted as he punched another marine, sending hurling towards other marines. He then heard Ace shout, "Luffy, go on ahead of me, I'll take care of this magma freak." He roared as his fist collided with Akanu's fist, creating a big explosion. However, Akanu suddenly smirked evilly and leaped towards Luffy, appearing behind him with his fist about to go through his back. However, Ace appeared in front of Luffy's back, ready to take the blow. Although nothing came, he turned around and his eyes widened. Standing there blocking Akanu's fist with his own fire fist was Naruto. Although he was different than usual, his eyes had slits instead of normal and they were now red and glaring daggers at Akanu, and the only words Naruto muttered was "you no chum bulkkoch flame dance." Flames suddenly sprouted all around Naruto like vines, only they were flames, and they shot towards the shell. Shocked Akanu, who put his fist in a cross position and got sent a few meters back by the attack and fell on one knee. "This kid knows hockey." He growled. "Who are you?" he said calmly, although you could hear the venom in his voice. Naruto just smirked towards the admiral. "Name's Naruto. I ate the foxfire fruit, so don't be thinking magma is stronger against my fire." He laughed as he saw the stern look in Akanu's face wash away and replaced by a shocked one, and Naruto proved it by pointing palms towards it. You know blaze storm," he roared as the flames shot off towards Akanu, who shot his magma at the attack and the two attacks. While Akanu waited for the smoke to clear, Naruto placed his hand on Luffy and Ace and Flash stepped onto Whitebeard's ship, who was currently fighting Aokiji. Naruto fell on one knee and wiped sweat from his head, and Ace looked at Naruto. "What are you doing here tonight?" "Not that I'm not happy to see you," Ace said as the two brothers grinned at him. Naruto just gave a grin in return as he stood back up. "Come on Ace, you should know that I'm not gonna let my Loja bro die now, am I?" He laughed as Ace just smiled more at being called a brother to Naruto. Naruto then did some hand signs and slammed his hands on the deck, summoning jutsu. He shouted as a fox the size of the Mobi appeared next to the ship. "Damn, I'm smaller than I used to be," Kurama said as he shrunk down to his kid form and hopped on Naruto's shoulder. "Hey Kurama, I want you to help the old man." He laughed a bit at the glare Ace sent him, and Naruto just sighed at the pleading look in Kurama's eyes, which was adorable in his kid form. "Fine, you can cause some destruction after you have helped him," Naruto said as he laughed as Kurama jumped off his shoulder and landed on Ace's head before jumping off, sending Ace to the ground and running off towards Whitebeard, leaving behind a laughing Naruto and Luffy and grumbling Ace about "stupid fox." With Kurama, he was running towards Whitebeard in a slightly bigger form. He now stood about the same size as Whitebeard. As he was running, he was using his tails to take out anyone that got in his way and also shot balls of foxfire out of his mouth at some of the marines that stood in front of him. He was surprised when he learned that he also had the devil fruit, which caused him to jump up and down like a little girl getting a new toy or clothes. However, as he got behind Whitebeard, his eyes widened slightly when he had one fist-sized hole in his stomach. He then hopped in front of Whitebeard much to his surprise and said, "Hey old man, your kid's back, so can you let me have some fun?" he asked in his normal carefree attitude, although there was a bit admiration in his voice which caused Whitebeard to grin. Gura, sure thing fox brat." He laughed as he turned round and slowly stomped towards his ship due to him, knowing that the fox was not a normal animal. Kurama's eyes twitched at the name, but turned his attention towards the admiral and the marines that were now around him. He smiled like it was Christmas and charged towards the marines. Let's just say the only challenge was the admiral. Naruto sighed as he looked at the war that was slowly coming to an end, but that didn't stop the admirals from trying to continue. Then a man wearing a panda hat appeared and looked towards Luffy and told him that he will have to take care of his injuries. Naruto then turned his attention towards Ace, who was walking towards him with the Phoenix guy. "So this is Bird Brain you told me about?" He laughed as the Bird Brain glared at him, while Ace just laughed. "Yeah, well, this Bird Brian could be classed as another Loja bro since he is technically uses fire." Ace laughed as Naruto just stared at him blankly. "That depends on whether you look at him as a fire type of a bird type, but I'm okay with that. After all, I might as well get to know him since someone made a promises to me and I've finished my training. Shanks' ship was already going to meet up with you, but when we found out the news I came here and left Shanks behind." Naruto laughed as he looked at Luffy, gave a weak wave to the three as the now named Law carried him away to his submarine. The ship had finally undocked away from Marineford, leaving Kurama there, who was fighting the three admirals. While sweating a little bit, the admirals were surprised when he suddenly disappeared in a poof of smoke. "Damn it kid, you had to ruin my fun." Naruto heard Kurama roar and he just laughed and cut his mental link with him for a bit so he can give him time to cool off. As Naruto looked over to the island again, saw Shanks save some pink-haired kid and blocked Akanu's magma punch with his sword. Naruto smiled when Shanks gave him a sea prison sword exactly like it, although he had a hard time avoiding his own blade from weakening himself, such as cleaning it or just accidentally touching the blade instead of the hilt. Naruto's thoughts were stopped when he noticed that he had every kind of weapon aimed towards him, making him sweat drop a bit. "What?" Naruto shouted as he held up his hands. "Who are you?" asked one of Whitebeard's crew. "I'm Ace." "And Luffy's bro, you idiot," he shouted as the crew cleared away, as Whitebeard slowly walked towards him, making him slightly nervous. Not that he would show it, so Ace has 4 brothers. "What's your name, brat?" Whitebeard asked in his rough voice as he looked down at Naruto. Naruto just grinned at him. Naruto Uzumaki, but people probably know me as the Foxfire Sage, he said as Whitebeard let out a loud laugh as he looked back down at Naruto. Yeah, I do, brat, you're the one with the 330 million bounty for killing a Nobel, he said as his laugh died down and all of his crew were wide-eyed towards Naruto. Well, he just smirked, remembering his time at Grove 42 at the entrance to Fishman Island as he had killed one for ordering Naruto to become his slave bodyguard, which caused Naruto's blood to boil and well kill him, and he had to take on Aokiji for killing him. Yup, but I got a favor to ask since Ace made a promise to me, he said seriously, which caused Whitebeard to raise an eyebrow towards Ace, and Naruto, I promised it'd help him with his devil fruit, after all we do sort of have the same fruit, he laughed, as Whitebeard just growled a bit, but before he could answer Naruto interrupted, I won't be trained yet, I gotta look after Luffy for a bit, so it'll be jumping on board Law's sub, and in a few months after your crew and ship have all been repaired, it'll return, Naruto assured, which caused Whitebeard to give him a grateful nod as Naruto waved bye to the crew and gave a flaming fist bump with Ace, causing the flames to go purple, which made Whitebeard's eyes widen slightly as Naruto disappeared in a blue flash. Those two are able to fuse their devil fruits, that's a frightening ability, Whitebeard thought to himself as he started giving out orders to his crew. Naruto appeared inside the submarine, much to the surprise of everyone on it, who all suddenly got in a defensive stance. Relax, I'm Luffy's bro, don't go killing me now, he said, as some of the crew relaxed until one of Law's crew member came up to him. How did you get here? We are already submerged, he asked as Naruto just smiled. Teleporter flash step, he grinned. The crew looked at him shocked until Law came out of the operation room. He is stable, but we will need to stop to an island to get more medical supplies, he said as he looked at Naruto. Who are you? He asked with a calm voice. Naruto just smirked. Naruto Uzumaki, he said, which caused Law to stumble a bit. Foxfire Sage, he asked as Naruto nodded. Yup, I'm gonna stay with Luffy a while until he gets fixed up, then I gotta go and get back to Whitebeard's crew, he said as he lied against the wall of the submarine, and Law just shrugged. Fine with me, as long as you don't cause trouble, he said as Naruto then looked at Law. Which island we going to? He asked as Law just waved at him without turning round. Amazon Lily. Chapter end. Chapter 4, The Island of Women. Naruto is currently sitting in one of the seats on Law's sub, hunched over with his hands wrapped around his stomach, making wheezing sounds. Guy think him gonna be sick, he says as he turns green and holds his hand over his mouth, trying to find some way to settle his stomach. Inside his mindscape, Kurama wasn't coping too well with her. He was currently on his back with his tongue out his mouth, and his fur was a paler gray color. Please, how long do we have to stay on this swimming death trap? Kurama cried in tears. All Naruto could do was nod along with him. Hey Fox Age, Law shouted from his seat on the sub as Naruto looked over at him with a sick look, which made Law's eyebrow twitch. Luffy should be fine. When we get to the Islam, his words were cut off as soon as Naruto leaped at him, pinning him to the floor with his chair knocked over. How long? Naruto whined. Law sat up and rubbed his temples from the fall while glaring at Naruto, but just let out a sigh. A few hours, he said in his normal calm tone. Naruto let out his own sigh as he looked out the window of the sub, admiring the view while also holding onto his stomach as if he was stabbed or something. Naruto was still looking out of the window until he seen the sub begin to emerge from the water, so he rushed to the exit of the sub, pushing the other pirates out of the way in the process. As he reached the hatch of the pirate sub, he burst out of it and began gasping. Ooh, sweet fresh air, panted at. He sat backwards with his head looking at the sky. When Naruto decided to look at his surroundings and noticed that the Dark King Rayleigh and Jinbei was currently talking to Luffy, who was talking about meeting up with his crew in another 2 years, Naruto hopped of the sub and onto the sandy beach and started walking towards the pirates, not before letting his legs getting used to being on land again. Naruto was currently talking with Luffy along the coast as they watched Law's ship slowly beginning to submerge. So you're going to train for 2 years before you meet up with your crew again? Naruto asked as Luffy just did his infamous smile. Yeah, if we want to go to the new world we have to become much stronger, so Rayleigh has come up with a plan to get my crew to meet up in those 2 years. Naruto just nodded his head. Yeah, I guess you couldn't come up with a plan like that. Naruto laughed, which caused a tick mark to appear on Luffy's head. Hey, yes I can. Shishishi, he yelled with a laugh of his own. Naruto just let out a sigh as he waved bye to Luffy and told him that he would meet up with his crew in the 2 years that they would be training, and that he also said that he was going to be staying on the island for a while until the Whitebeard pirates would meet him on the Island of Women. After everyone had departed, the only one left standing on the beach was Naruto, who was currently staring into the dense forest that lies before him. He knew that the women that inhabit the island had already seen him and everyone that was with him before, but he just ignored them. Naruto then began to walk slowly towards the forest that was until an arrow came shooting towards him, heading straight towards his head, but thanks to his observation haki, he slid his head to the side and the arrow shot past his head, threading a few strands of his hair in the process. The arrow that went past him hit a nearby rock and the rock was impaled by a large crater due to the arrow haki infused arrows. That's new for me, Naruto chuckles as he threw some chakra infused shuriken at The culprit who ended up leaping into the open, it was a girl with blonde hair and wearing some very revealing tribal clothes. She also had a strange-looking snake around her neck. Naruto looked at her with his arms crossed, staring at her, although she was bending her snake so that it was in the shape of a bow at him. "What are you and what are you doing here?" she demanded. Naruto just chuckled at her. "Don't worry, I'm just waiting here for a crew of pirates to pick me up, since I will be leaving in a few weeks," he assured and smirked at the other question. "And for your what question?" "I am a man," he said as she widened her eyes. Naruto had figured that they would not know what a man was, since it was called the Island of Women. "After all, well, you will have to come with me to see the Empress," she demanded again. Naruto just let out a small huff as he slowly began walking towards her. Naruto had figured that she was going to put him to sleep, just as he thought that she stabbed an arrow in his upper shoulder, but to her surprise, he didn't even flinch and ended up falling asleep. While standing, a few other Amazons came out and began to move Naruto towards the village, while also getting a little curious about the structure of a man. Amazon village cell. Naruto groggily got up and rubbed his eyes a bit and realized that he was in a cell, and when he looked around the cell, he noticed that where the bars were they were currently lots of women mobbing around the cell. Some were blushing and some were examining Naruto, then stood up and looked at the woman who stabbed him in the shoulder. "You didn't have to stab me, you know," he deadpanned at her as she just let out a small growl. "Shut up," she spluttered. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that, but then looked down and realized that he was naked, so using his devil fruit he engulfed his body in a blue flame, vanished so that he was wearing his normal clothes again. Some of the females let out whines and growls at why he wasn't naked anymore, and others were shocked at what he had done. Naruto then sat in the lotus post ion and went into his mind, escaped much the confusion of the women. "Hey Kur, are you still alive?" Naruto laughed as he saw Kurama in a near-death state, with his nose red from all of the blood loss. "Why yes, I am alive barely," Kurama panted as he sat up again like he was never in a near-death state. "So what can I do for you?" Naruto smirked at that. "Hey Kur, how would you like to come out?" Naruto asked his perverted partner, almost laughing at the shocked look on Kurama's face. Then outside the mindscape, Naruto began going through some hand signs that confused the women watching him all the more. After he finished the hand seals, he shouted summoning jutsu, then there was a poof of smoke, and there stood in his kid form Kurama, which not so surprisingly caused most of the girls to squeal and just want to cuddle him, and while the girls were distracted with Kurama, who was currently in rest heaven, realized what Naruto had done. He cursed and thanked him for that. You know bullet," Naruto whispered and began shooting the wall so that the holes made the outline of a door. He then kicked it down and made way for his escape. Little did he know the wall he shot down leads to the arena. Amazon village arena. Naruto sighed as he slowly walked down a long corridor. However, as he seen a light at the end, he noticed a big sign on the wall, the Dread Arena. Naruto could only curse at his bad luck, although as he began walking again, he heard someone shouting something familiar. "Gomu Gomu no Rocket." Naruto heard as he came to an opening, and when he did, to his surprise, he seen Luffy fighting two snake ladies. Naruto, however, was now the center of attention as he slowly walked to the middle of the arena and stood his usual stance with his arms folded. Some of the women, however, were shocked. "Hey, how did you get out?" the blonde girl that stabbed him from before said as she left him there to go watch what was going on at the arena. Luffy stopped his attack and turned round and noticed Naruto standing a few yards away from him. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" Luffy shouted. However, Naruto was currently feeling like he was being glared at like in Konoha, which caused his eyes overshadow and unintentionally let loose his Kai, which also caused nearly everyone to be sick except for Luffy. As Naruto managed to avoid aiming it at him, Naruto's eyes became blue with dark red slits and flames went from his fingers up to his shoulders, and finally his blonde hair then had blue and black tips in them, although before he could lose control, he managed to calm himself down when Kurama jumped on his shoulder. "You okay, kid?" "I came as soon as I sensed you leaking killing intent." Naruto could only drop down on one knee and pant a bit. "Why yeah, just those glares gave me bad memories." "What was that?" "It felt like I was going to turn into a wild animal," Naruto thought and shuddered a bit at that. However, he nearly lost control when he seen the glare the woman who was sitting in a throne was giving him. Instead, he just let out a sad sigh and regained his composure and went back to his usual self. "He's sorry about that everyone," he laughed as he turned serious again. "Hey Luffy, I should be asking you the same thing. You should have left with Rayleigh," he shouted with a tick mark. Luffy wasn't able to answer as one of the lizards shot up towards Naruto with her large claws extended. "Die," she shouted as she slashed towards him. That sent him back a few feet as he had his arms crossed in a blocking position. You no shotgun," Naruto shouted as he raised his hands and spread his fingers, causing lots of small flames to shoot out of them and hit the lizard women, hurling back and hit into the near wall, causing a small explosion. Naruto then walked towards Luffy while the two sisters were currently gritting their teeth. "You were saying?" He chuckled at his soon-to-be captain. "Yashishishi, old man Rayleigh said he was going away to meet someone, and when he has done so he left me at Amazon Lily. Well, he is gone and he won't be back for a week." At hearing this, Naruto could only smirk and put one of his arms around Luffy's shoulder. Well, looks like we are going to be spending some time together, since I will be here for a week too. He laughed as Luffy laughed along with him. However, the Empress suddenly broke the silence by standing up, which caused Naruto to look up at her with a raised eyebrow. Then she put her hands in a heart-shaped pose, with her arms stretched out towards Naruto. Miro Miro Mello, she said, and a continuous beam of love heart shot out towards Naruto and passed through him. After a few seconds, Naruto let out a few blinks and looked at her. Was that supposed to hurt? He asked as he started checking his own body to see if anything was out of the ordinary, and to his shock and humor, Kurama was still on his shoulder, but he was as solid as a rock. Literally, Naruto was about to loose all of his strings until Luffy burst out laughing, and Naruto just gave him the excellent look towards him. Luffy wiped a few stray tears away and looked at Naruto. Her devil fruit power is the Miro Miro no Mi, which basically turns anyone who looks at her with dirty thoughts to stone. He laughed, which caused Naruto to roll around on the floor as well. However, the stone-hard Kurama began to glow red, and then there was a poof of smoke, and there standing good as new was Kurama, which caused the Empress's eyes to widen and glare daggers at Naruto and the fox. Take them away, however, bring that one with me, she shouted while pointing towards Naruto, much to the shock of the other females and her sisters. So he called back Kurama and nodded towards Luffy and began to follow the guards to where he was going to meet the Empress. Amazon Village Empress's private chambers. Naruto slowly entered into the Empress's private chambers and began to look around the large queen-like chamber. As he walked further into the large room, he noticed that the Empress was currently sitting on her bed, still glaring towards Naruto, which made him narrow his eyes towards her. He was about to speak, but she beat him to it. Do you think I am beautiful? She asked as she flicked her hair like a princess, which caused Naruto's eyes to twitch. What? He stumbled, which caused her to huff. Do you think I, the Empress of Amazon Lily, is the most beautiful woman you have ever seen? She asked like she knew the obvious answer to the question. So Naruto took the time to examine the Empress of Amazon Lily. He had to admit that she was definitely beautiful, although she would be a lot more beautiful without the Emma princess attitude. She has long slim legs that she wasn't afraid to show them. She had beautiful round globes for breasts that looked like they would pop out of her robes at any moment, and her long silky raven black hair that had a shine to it. After he was done, he did have dirty thoughts, but he pushed them to the back of his mind, in which Kurama was currently viewing the dirty images that Naruto had thought up of, which caused him to giggle perversely. So Naruto had to hold a tick mark appearing, so he cut the link with Kurama for a while. And yes, you are very beautiful. However, she smirked at being called beautiful just as she suspected, although she was shocked at what he said next. Just from looking at you, I could also tell that you think you are better than everyone else, and you obviously hate men for a reason that pisses me off, because not all men are the same. He growled a bit as he sat down on one of the bedroom chairs, which caused her to glare at him a bit before turning around and unseal her clothes, much to the shock of Naruto and Kurama, as they were now both holding onto their noses. What are you doing? Naruto panicked a bit before he noticed a mark on her back. I already shown this to Luffy-kun. He said he didn't know what it was. She was cut off by Naruto. The slave mark, he sighed as he looked up to the sky. Yeah, I have seen it. It's a mark of those asses of the nobles, he said, but he spat the word noble with venom in his voice. However, he just smiled at her. What do you think of me now? She asked as she put up her mask, which Naruto noticed immediately. So you hide behind your mask? Naruto gave out a sad chuckle as her eyes widened ever so slightly. I don't know what you are talking about, man, she said, but cursed herself for stuttering. Don't lie, Empress. I've hid behind a mask nearly all of my life, and if I had to guess, so have you. He smiled at her again. And no, I don't think of you any lower since you have that mark. It's somehow similar to the mark I have. Naruto chuckled as he gave her his foxy grin, which caused a slight tinge to appear at the side of her cheeks, and small tears welled up at the corner of her eyes. Oh, and my name's not man, it's Naruto, your Empress. He laughed at her, which she gave another glare at him, but just let out a small huff and looked the other way. And my name's not Empress, it's Boa Hancock. The now named Boa Hancock introduced herself to Naruto, in which he smiled at her and lifted his shirt off so that he could show her his mark, which caused her cheeks to turn red at his well-toned body and the abs that looked like they were carved from Kami herself. But then the markings caught her attention and she slowly ran her index finger up and down his mark, and he began to explain what it was, and that it was a mark that kept his pet partner friend inside him, and that it was the fox that she had turned to stone earlier was intact. A demon. Don't worry about him, since he is a pervert. He wouldn't dream of destroying this island. He laughed as Boa just gave Naruto a grin that promised that Kurama would experience pain the next time she seen him. Naruto just gave a small pray towards Kurama as he knew he was in for a hard time. Then Boa was having a mixture of anger and relief towards the people that hurt Naruto, which confused her a bit. Now it's your turn to remove your mask, Naruto ordered, and for some reason, she just listened to him and burst into tears and covered her eyes. However, she stiffened a bit when she felt a pair of arms wrap around her body, so she cried into Naruto's chest. After several minuets of her crying, she ended up falling asleep in his arms, so he had put her down on the bed and gave off a small chuckle. She actually looks cute when she's asleep. Naruto slowly walked out of the room, unknown to him that she was still awake. Amazon Village Arena. Headed to the arena, which was currently empty all except Luffy, who was busy training some of his techniques. He sat at the edge of the arena and lied back with his hands behind his head and did what Shikamaru liked to call cloud watching, as he slowly raised one of his hands and lit up one of his fingers. Then he suddenly got an idea for one of his new moves. He held up one hand and Kurama's chakra entered it and caused his hand to change into gold for its Biju form, and he lit his other hand with his blue flames, and he slowly put his hands together and pushed them outwards, and it shocked him what happened, which caused him to smirk and let out heavy panting. Damn, that draws a lot of my energy. I think that's a new move for me. I think he'll call it yoi yoi no pogsu bunno apostrophe Fox's rage. Yeah, I like that though. This did not go unnoticed by Luffy or Boa, as she had woken up and began doing her usual work as the Empress, and Luffy had stars in his eyes. So cool. He kept shouting, which caused Naruto to hit him over the head. I just learned it now, shut up, he shouted comically towards Luffy, who just ended up laughing with a large bump on his head. Naruto then noticed Boa and gave her a wave with a small smile, which in turn made her blush and hide from him and cause his eye to twitch. Please don't go Hinata on my ass, he laughed as he jumped up towards the seats and slowly walked after her. Hey, wait up. Naruto yelled as he caught up with Boa, who was currently blushing like a cherry at the moment. Damn it, why can I stop blushing when I see him? It's different with him than it was with Luffy. I feel so warm and I get butterflies in my stomach when I see him, she thought as she recomposed herself and looked at Naruto, who was currently looking at her as if she had caught a fever or something. Hey, I forgot to ask Boa, but do you think I could stay here for a week with Luffy since I'm planning on meeting someone here? He smiled at her. Oh, of course you can, it'd be happy for you and Luffy kun to stay here, she said, while trying not to sound happy that Naruto would be staying on the island, which Naruto caught this time. Oh, could it be that you are happy that I'm staying, Boa-chan? He teased her, which caused her to blush so much it would put Hinata to shame. I don't know what you are talking about, Naruto-kun, she said, not realizing that she added the kun suffix o, so it's Naruto-kun now, is it? He teased more as he just chuckled and gave her a small hug. Thanks Boa, you're the best, he laughed as he left the arena to continue on with his training. Time skip. Amazon Village docks 1 week later. Here we find Naruto in his usual attire with a cape like Shanks, however it had blue flames on the bottom and he had his dark orange shorts, like Luffy's, but down past his knees, and a white buttoned-up shirt with the Uzumaki clan logo, as well as the straw hat and red hair pirates logo on his shirt, and his usual black combat boots, as he slowly watched a Moby dock into Amazon Lily, as Boa and Luffy's mouths were on the floor. Luffy because his brothers' captain's ship was a huge, and Boa because Naruto didn't tell her who was picking him up and that she wasn't expecting it to be a legendary pirate. Over that past week Naruto got to know his captain more and eventually got used to his simple-minded nature as his soon-to-be captain, and he also spent a lot of time with Boa as they both enjoyed their time with each other. They were both sad that they would be leaving each other, not that they would admit it, but they got closer than simple friends could do, and much to the shock of Naruto and those around them, Boa leaned in and gave a small kiss to Naruto's cheek and whispered in his ear, "I'll see you in the new world," she said, which caused Naruto to control his blush and smile and nod towards her before she pulled away and ran behind one of her sisters. Then appeared Rayleigh, who had came to pick Luffy up and gave Naruto a small drinking contest before they went, and much to the surprise of Rayleigh he lost to Naruto due to Naruto not being affected by alcohol, and he waved bye to the two of them as he leaped up onto the Moby. Hey Naruto, an all too familiar voice was heard as he slowly looked over to where the sound had come from and noticed that it was none other than Ace and Marco. However, there was a man that nearly made him stumble at the sheer power, as he did see him at the war, but he never got a good look at him, and it was none other than Edward Newgate aka Whitebeard, one of the emperors of the sea. Gurgurgurgura, so you're the brat that saved my son from being killed by the marine dog, Whitebeard said in his usual gruff voice. This caused Naruto to tense slightly, however he was still going to act like himself. Yeah, old man, I saved Ace from getting his ass kicked, besides we became brothers ever since we are able to find each other due to our devil fruit similarities. Naruto chuckled, however he was surprised when the room went silent and there were some gasps and Whitebeard let out a gruff laugh towards Naruto. I wouldn't be surprised if you were related to him since you act similar to him. So Ace is going to be training you for 2 years. I can see that you have already been trained by Shanks due to the mark on your shirt, Whitebeard said as he slowly took a chug of his drink as Naruto turned serious and nodded as Whitebeard continued, well, you better be prepared, brat, because I give much harsher training than your old teacher Redhead. He chuckled as Naruto laughed at what he called Shanks. As he nodded again and smirked, yeah, he said that you would say that, and I say bring it on, Naruto shouted as put his fist in his hand and gave of his old foxy grin, showing that he was prepared for whatever the Whitebeard pirates had planned for him. Whitebeard just smirked back at him and let out a mighty roar. Alright brat, set sail, he shouted as Naruto walked to the edge of the ship and waved towards everyone and gave a small wink at Boa, who ended up blushing. Naruto smiled and looked up at the sky. Bring it on, he shouted as his flames sparked from his hands. Chapter end. Chapter 5 Training and Second Meeting. After saying their goodbyes to everyone one Amazon Lily Naruto met up with the rest of Whitebeard's crew, and now here we find Naruto, Ace, Marco standing in front of Whitebeard. Naruto currently had his arms folded without his arms in the sleeves. He grew a habit to stand like Whitebeard, and because that stance looks cool. Marco was in his usual attire leaning against the mast, and Ace was sat down with his legs crossed with a shit-eating grin on his face at what Whitebeard was going to ask. Naruto, so Fox Brat, how would you like to join my crew? Naruto let out a small smile grace his face as he looked up at Whitebeard. Trust me when I say this, it would be an honor for me to join your crew, old man, but I've already set my sights on making Luffy the Pirate King, Naruto said as he never took his eyes away from Whitebeard's own eyes. Then Whitebeard let out his infamous laugh as he looked down at them. Grr, I understand, Fox Brat, and after this training that my sons are going to teach you, my training will be the hardest of all. At hearing this, Marco nearly fell overboard and Aces nearly set the ship on fire, and Naruto was no longer serious. Instead he was looking at Whitebeard with eyes as big as plates, and even Kurama was shocked in his mindscape. Naruto was standing next to Kurama, and Chibi Naruto began jumping around saying things like yeah. And so cool. However, they all eventually regained their composure as and coughed into his fist. Thank you, I will gladly accept your offer to train under you all, and especially Toy, old man, but there must be a reason that you in particular want to train me, Naruto stated as he smirked at the captain, who in return smirked back. Simple, really, you have the same eyes I used to have when I was your age, and I can see a lot of myself and Shanks, and surprisingly even Roger and Blackbeard, Whitebeard said, which caused Ace to literally burn some of the ship and Marco to fall of the ship. This time Naruto raised an eyebrow at the last two names, but just smirked and nodded to Whitebeard as he looked up at him. I accept. He roared with excitement clear in his voice. He then looked at Whitebeard, almost drooling. When do I star? He never got to finish as Ace and Marco began charging towards him with the intent to kill, which made Naruto smirk a bit and counter their attacks, and thus began Naruto's training. Whitebeard laughed a bit as he slowly turned around and began walking away towards the captain's dorm. Time skip 1 year. Whitebeard pirates the Naruto. After 1 year of training and 1 year to go, he stands as the mass of the Mobi. He was currently taking a break from all of the training Whitebeard's crew have set him. Ace taught Naruto his strongest move, Flame Emperor, the giant ball of fire. Marco taught him how to manifest his devil fruit into an anime. In Naruto's case, a fox made entirely of fox fire, and the other devil fruit crew taught them so much that he was basically a living textbook on devil fruit moves, and now he was currently preparing himself for Whitebeard's training, and to say he wasn't nervous would be a complete lie because he was currently sweating bullets, but also looked excited at the same time. Ace noticed this and couldn't help but nearly burst out laughing, which caused Naruto to give a glare at him. What? Naruto asked in a shaky voice as Ace stood back up. Oh, nothing, you just seem a little tense. Ace laughed again as Naruto just snorted. Anyone would be when you are about to be trained by an emperor of the sea, and I will have been trained by 2 of them by the end of the year, Naruto said with a slight shiver at remembering some of Shanks' training sessions with him. Ace couldn't help but chuckle and feel a bit jealous sympathy for Naruto that he was going to be trained by Whitebeard. Naruto and Ace both stiffened as they heard a gruff growl that sounded like enter, which Naruto could only gulp and slowly walk into the captain's quarters where Whitebeard stood at a large desk and Whitebeard sat behind it staring at Naruto like he was looking into his very soul. Eventually Whitebeard just smiled, not your average smile, but this one was sinister, which made Naruto regret accepting his training, but it was too late. Alright brat, you have been here for a whole year training with all of my devil fruit users. Well, now you will be training 1 year with me in both hockey and devil fruit. Since Shanks never fully taught you everything about hockey, I will complete that. Whitebeard said with a smirk as he pulled out his pole arm, however he thrusted it forward like he was pointing it at Naruto. Whitebeard's pole arm was coated in hockey, and it all seemed to go in slow motion from there. As soon as Whitebeard thrusted his pole arm forward and said Naginata Setsu, Naruto was blasted out of the captain's quarters and flew across the Mobi. Naruto then managed to flip himself round, so he was upright and landed on the deck of the ship while sliding back a few meters and destroying some of the deck. Naruto then looked up to where the captain's quarters used to be and coughed up a bit of blood onto the floor. All of the Whitebeard pirates were looking at Naruto, then the big hole in the wall. Ace knew what attack Whitebeard had just used and was surprised that he could withstand an hockey plus devil fruit attack and be still standing after it. Beaming wide eyes slowly peered out of the captain's quarters like a demon as Whitebeard slowly emerged from the rubble and smirked at Naruto. Well brat, you just passed my test of being able to withstand that attack, so you better be prepared for the training you will be going through, Whitebeard said as Naruto just smirked back and wiped some of the blood away from his lips before he thanks, Pops, Naruto said, which caused Whitebeard's eyes to widen ever so slightly at being called Pops for the first time by Naruto. He then smiled at the pro Naruto before him. Someone get Naruto to the medical ward, Whitebeard said, while also saying Naruto's name instead of brat for the first time. Time skip 1 year. Sabati Archipelago. The lone figure could be seen walking along the streets of the gateway to Fishman Island. However, no one could see what he looked like as he had a cloak over his body and wrapped around his face so you could only one of his sapphire eyes. He was walking. He noticed that there was a pub nearby and he could sense one of the straw hats was inside. His blue eyes were now fixed on the entrance of the pub. As he slowly walked towards the pub, he could hear that it was quite loud and sounded like there was a brawl inside. Then he slowly entered and everything went quiet as all eyes were now on the cloaked figure and what looked like to be a fat fake Luffy was currently trying to flirt with Nami, who had changed a lot in the last 2 years. And was wearing nothing but a bikini. Luckily no one could see the cloaked man's face or they would have seen a few bits of blood down his nose. He then kept walking until he was sitting at a stool next to Nami. She seemed to notice him and began to ignore the fake Luffy and turned towards the cloaked figure who was currently ordering ramen. Nami wondered if she knew anyone like that but didn't seem to notice. Just as she was about to ask who he was, the fake Luffy shouted at her, "Hey babe, get your ass over here now. Don't you know who I am? I am Monkey D. Luffy, son of Monkey D. Dragon and grandson of Monkey D. Garp." He shouted while giving everyone in the room a cocky smirk as he noticed all of them begin to tremble, all except for the two figures at the bar. He was about to continue his rant when they heard the door to the pub open again and in stepped Usopp. He began walking towards the bar with a smirk. As he waved, he appeared on the stool next to her. "Or would you rather be with me?" he said in a gentleman kind of voice, which caused Nami to turn her attention to Usopp and smile. "Usopp." She yelled and hugged him while shoving his head in between her breasts and jumping up and down. The fake Luffy began to get annoyed and pointed Usopp. "Boy. Do you know WH?" He was cut off as Usopp fired something at him with his kabuto. What appeared to be a small seed landed in front of fake Luffy. "Ha ha ha ha. What is th?" He was cut off again as the seed transformed into some plant thing with testicles and picked the whole fake straw hat crew up and began throwing them round like rag dolls. Meanwhile Nami decided to turn her attention to the cloaked figure again and realized that he was gone and the only thing that was left was some berry on the counter and an empty bowl. Nami had a curious look in her eye before she turned her attention back to Usopp. "Come on, let's go to the sunny," she said before standing up and walking out of the bar, although not before using an electrical storm to finish off the fake straw hat crew. Skip half an hour back with the cloaked figure. The man was once again walking along the street after having an encounter with two of the straw hats. He now found himself on an open field covered in pirates from bounties going from 10,000 to 200 million, wanting to join some sort of straw hat crew, and he somehow found himself in the middle of it while avoiding all of the pirates. Because of it being such a cramped place he couldn't go anywhere, so he just stood there and looked up at the small cliff and sweat dropped because there was the fake Luffy rambling on again about who he was and why they should fear him. The cloaked man looked over and noticed a pirate holding all of the Straw Hat Crew's bounties, and just as Admiral said, which caused him to raise an eyebrow before turning his attention towards another figure who was standing on a cliff opposite to the one he was currently standing on, and he nearly burst out laughing at seeing Luffy with a glasses and mustache mask, and he was also carrying a huge back on his back. After a while of searching, one of the pacifista said, "Monkey D. Luffy bounty 400,000,000 target sighted," he said in a robotic voice, while another looked at the cloaked man, which in turn caused him to let out a sad sigh and brought out his arm and infused it with hockey. All the while the pacifista said, "The Foxfire Sage bounty 410,000,000 target sighted." Naruto sighed as he gripped hold of the top of his cape and ripped it off, showing the new Naruto. He was now wearing a blue shirt with a sky blue flame pattern on his left sleeve. He also had a tattoo of Shanks Jolly Roger on his left arm and the Jolly Roger for white beard on his back, like Ace's. His hair was slightly longer and still had the blue tips in his hair, and he also wore black shorts that went to his knees, and finally he had his cloak, which was similar to Shanks' cloak, only Naruto's had a blue flame pattern in the center of the cape. The two pacifista fired beams at both Luffy and Naruto, while Luffy just leaned his head right and left to dodge the beams that ended up going straight past him. Naruto coated his arm in Busoshoku Haki and flung his fist, hitting the light beam like a bat hitting a ball, sending it in another direction, and he did this with two other beams, like he was batting away a fly. Of course Naruto then disappeared and reappeared right next to Luffy, which caused Luffy to look at him for a moment. "Hey little brother." In a while Naruto smirks as lights his hand on fire with his infamous devil fruit. Luffy then notices the flames immediately and gives Naruto his huge smile. "Hey Naruto, it's been a while, I was just following Zoro." Sanji and he stopped talking as he noticed Naruto holding his chest while crying with laughter, while Naruto had just noticed where he was pointing and began laughing. "Hahaha, you haha, if you really can't tell what your own crew looks like." Luffy glared at Naruto and nodded. "Well, take a closer look at them." Then he finished while wiping a few stray tears from his eyes, while Luffy did what he was told and began crying and "I'm tears" and kept repeating "I'm sorry" over and over, but then Naruto put a Hand on his shoulder, come on, let's go find your ship then. Just as they were about to leave, they heard the Vice Admiral, sorry Straw Hat, Foxfire, but you two are not leaving here and I'm taking you in, he said, while pointing his large axe at the two PX5 and PX4, capture them. He shouted as the two pacifistas walked towards them, while all of the other pirates tried to run away, but realized they were surrounded. Naruto then did something that no one expected. He pulled out a miniature version of Whitebeard's palm and set the whole thing on fire with his devil fruit, which caused Luffy to have stars in his eyes, while shouting cool. He then said yo yo no flame slash and swung his palm downwards, creating a large beam wiping out most of the pirates, all except one pacifista who was not damaged due to just arriving, and the Vice Admiral was coughing up bits of blood while his axe was in pieces on the floor. Come on Luffy, let's go, Naruto said as he began running with a nearly passed out Luffy, who was foaming from how cool that was. Then the final pacifista appeared behind them, with his arms aimed at them and his mouth open. Naruto and Luffy both ignored the robot. Then in front of them appeared Zoro and Sanji. Great Dragon Shock. Zoro shouted and sliced his head while at the same time Sanji lit his leg on fire. Diable Jam, he shouts and delivered one kick to the pacifista's neck after they both then began to argue about who killed the pacifista first. Shut up Moss Head, I broke his neck, Sanji shouted while glaring daggers at his rival, while Zoro glared back, no way Irokukai cut his head off. He shouted back, which caused Luffy to laugh and Naruto to laugh and sweat drop at the same time. While they were running, Luffy suddenly stopped and turned his attention to a lone figure standing on top of a hill facing the four pirates. Luffy then raised both his arms in the air and clenched them into fists. Rayleigh, Luffy shouted, which made Naruto, Zoro and Sanji smirk at Luffy. Rayleigh looked at Luffy with a smile as a small tear went down his face, but he quickly wiped it away. I am gonna do it. Luffy shouted again, I am gonna find the One Piece and become the king of the pirates. He shouted with pride and confidence in his voice. Then Luffy laughed again and began running again with his three crewmates in tow. As the four Straw Hats were leaving, there were Marines sing after them not to fat behind, although this did not go unnoticed by Rayleigh, so he made a huge cut in the ground in front of all of the Marines, which caused them all to stop in their tracks and look at Rayleigh, while one of the Vice Admirals shouted, it's the Dark King Rayleigh. He shouted and began to back off again, while Naruto was currently running with his crew on the inside. He was talking with Kurama about some of the abilities he should use, however, before he could ask he was currently knocked out of his conversation by Zoro, who was nudging him because Luffy was trying to get his attention. What is it, Luffy? He asked his captain while he just smiled. We have reached the Sunny, Luffy said as Naruto looked up at the Sunny for the first time and smiled while also wondering what happened to their last ship. As Luffy, Zoro and Sanji stepped on the ship, Naruto followed close behind them. He noticed that there were two new crewmates from when he last met the crew, but he also heard that there was one they were still waiting for. 1,000 Sunny. On the deck of the ship, everyone was currently looking at Naruto with suspicious eyes, not that he could blame them, so he decided to sit on the edge of the mast. Okay, so I can see that most of you don't feel comfortable with me being here, so if you have any questions then fire away, Naruto said with a smile, which caused two of the female pirates to blush a bit. The first one to step forward was the Raku Cough Reindeer H. Hi, I'm Tony Chopper. I am also the doctor of the crew. Luffy told us that you would be new after the 2 years skip, but we never got to meet because I wasn't in the crew at the time. Naruto smiled at the name Chopper and said, well Chopper, I'll be counting on you to heal me in the future anyways. For those of you that don't know you, I am Naruto D. Uzumaki. The D was added when he became brothers with Ace, Luffy and Cough Sabo, and Luffy's big brother. He laughed as Luffy glared at him while all of the crew looked at Naruto and Luffy in shock. What? Luffy asked innocently. I thought you only had one brother, Luffy-kun, Robin says, but Luffy just gives a sad smile. Well actually I have four, Luffy said, which caused everyone to be once more shocked, but before they could ask Luffy who the fourth was, Naruto stepped in. Hey, I don't think Luffy wants to go there, Naruto said as he noticed Luffy getting a bit more wary after Luffy managed to calm down from the sad memories. Naruto continued, now on with the questions. Anyone want to ask me? Naruto said as Zoro came forward. What is your bounty now? Since last time we met your bounty was 330 million, Beery, Zoro said, which caused Usopp and Chopper's eyes to go wide and Naruto to smirk and pull out a poster of himself. Then Zoro read out, the Foxfire Sage Naruto D. Uzumaki. Wanted dead of alive 410 million Beery. Info: it is unknown what crew he is part of, however he does have 3 Jolly Rogers, one is red-haired Shanks, another is the Whitebeard Pirates, and finally he has Straw Hats. He has all of these Jolly Roger tattoos over his body. Only come in contact with this man if you are in high Vice Admiral or higher. Zoro finished with wide eyes at realizing that Naruto still had a higher bounty than Luffy, even if it was only by 10 million, it was still a shock to the whole crew on the ship. Naruto just gave a comical blush. What? He asked innocently while the whole crew sweat dropped a bit. Why do you have a tattoo of Shanks and Whitebeard? Robin asked out of curiosity while Naruto just smirked. Well, I am a part of their crew and I was trained by Whitebeard in the 2-year training that you all had. I was training too. Naruto Whitebeard's name with pride while the others were currently shocked. Frankie shook his head. Hey, there is something you all need to know that is super important, he said to himself. Well, Luffy. Usopp and Chopper thought he was going to show them something new that would be cool, but then he got serious. When I was arriving at the Sunny there was someone already there, Bartholomew Kuma, but he was a pacifista. But he was seriously damaged, and when he was about to go he said, and I quote, mission complete, protect Straw Hat ship until return, and that was what he said before leaving. Frankie finished off. Then Luffy said, well, since he protected the Sunny I guess he was an alright guy. Shishi. He laughed before Frankie said, yeah, he was super. But remember, the next time we meet him he will be nothing but a mindless robot with no emotions, Frankie said, which caused everyone to nod along. Then Naruto did some head seals and out popped Kurama in his chibi form, who was now resting on Naruto's shoulder. Hey guys, you probably know Kurama, my partner, best friend, family, Naruto said, which caused them all to nod and Chopper to ask, did he eat a devil fruit like mine? He asked, but Naruto just smiled and shook his head. No, Pesa the Great Kyuubi no Yauki, Naruto said, which caused Kurama to suck in all of the praise, but noticed Chopper back away. Then Kurama said with a small sweat drop, just because I'm a demon docent, mean I'm going to hurt you, Chopper, Kurama said with a small laugh, which caused some of the crew to less tense. Then the whole crew began to hear something yo ho 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 ho. They heard. Then Usopp and Chopper said, it's Brook. They shouted as they noticed the flying fish glide over the ship and down dropped a skeleton. Yo ho 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 ho, dead bone. Brooks is back, baby, he said while playing his guitar. Then Luffy said, okay, so everyone is here, so let's set sail for Fishman Island. He shouted. Then out of nowhere Sanji and Kurama said, and to meet all the mermaids. They finished off before the ship began to sink, much to the horror of Naruto and Kurama, who immediately began to get scared. Then Nami asked, what's wrong with those two? She asked, but the rest of the crew just shrugged as they heard Naruto say no, not underwater anything, but that he said over and over again. 1000 Sunny, underwater. After a few hours Naruto and Kurama managed to get used to it with a little thanks from Chopper, but they still ended up getting a bit nervous from time to time due to having a fear of being underwater. By then, Naruto had been going round talking with the other crew so that they wouldn't be too cautious around him, and Kurama Naruto then noticed that the further down they got the darker the bigger the fish, and it also began to get a lot colder, but it didn't really affect him since he was basically a bonfire when he wanted to be. Then him, Luffy and Zoro looked at each other and smirked. Hey, I bet I could catch all of those fish with my Gomu Gomu no Gatling, Luffy said confidently. Then Naruto said, PFFFT, I could catch them and roast them at the same time, he said with a smirk. Then Zoro said, I could catch more than the both of you, he said as the three of them were about to begin the contest. Usopp and Chopper hit them all over the head. Are you three stupid? If you do that then you will end up popping the balloon. Usopp shouted, yeah, do that again and it'll kill you. Chopper said. Well, they both began to cry and I'm tears. A few minuets later, Naruto was talking to Nami about the coding of the ship, which caused him to go into a daydream, not understanding a word she was talking about. He was then hit in the ribs by Nami's elbow. Hey, are you listening? She shouted to everyone. Then they looked over the mast, then Brook shouted Genkishin. And Luffy, Zoro, Chopper, Usopp and Naruto took a sip out of their tea and said in unison, a bubble on an underwater current, they said, which caused Sanji and Nami to sweat drop. Nami-chan, I have some ram. He wasn't able to finish as he noticed that the bowl of ramen he was going to give Nami was empty. Then he heard a loud burp and saw Naruto lying down. Sanji, you make great ramen, Naruto said with a happy sigh, while Sanji got a large tick mark that was for Nami-chan. He shouted before looking at Nami's breasts and being blown back by a nosebleed, which of course caused Chopper to scream Sanji. After a few more hours of sailing downwards, they didn't notice the other ship that was hot on their trail. However, Usopp decided to do some scouting with his scope. Hey guys, I think there is a large fish. No, wait, it's another ship and it's heading straight for us, Usopp shouted, which caused the others to get red for a fight expert for Naruto, who was currently chatting to Robin about his godfather's books. After a few more minuets the ship caught up and ended up boarding the Sunny. They noticed that the guy leading the crew, which they believed was the captain as they remembered his name, was Caribou, and he was also a devil fruit user as he ate the Numa Numa no Mi Muck Muck fruit. After a while of wondering who it was, they then didn't bother putting up a fight with him as he was far too weak with a bounty of only 210 million biri. Then as the captain jumped on the ship, Naruto stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. He had been needing to let off some steam. Naruto smirked with a sadistic grin on his face, but before he could get his work out, Luffy looked at the cowfish. Hey, I know you're that cow thing we saw at Arlong Park, Nami said, which got the cowfish's attention. Then Luffy said, oh yeah, I remember him, which caused the cowfish to look at him and Sanji before taking off with the ship in tow due to it being forced to carry the ship. This went unnoticed by Caribou, who kept saying fire the Gatling over and over again until her realized that there was no one there, which caused Naruto to walk over to him. Yo no blazing prison, he said calmly as a blue flame cell dropped on top of Caribou. Now that is taking care of Can W. He wasn't able to finish as he noticed the ship come back with a badly beaten sea cow, but before they could dock with the Sunny again, a giant tentacle wrapped around the ship and crushed the bubble in the ship, leaving a shocked crew. A few minuets later Usopp and Chopper looked over the side of the ship and began sweating before they both shouted to Kraken. Chapter end. Fishman Island. Ah. It's the Kraken. Usopp shouted as he backed away and fell on his backside, while Chopper was as scared as Usopp, while Naruto, Luffy, Zoro and Sanji looked at for a few seconds before Luffy said, "I'm gonna tame it." He laughed, which caused the other three to sweat drop, while Naruto just popped some of his joints to get ready for some fun. "I was expecting you to say that you wanted to eat it, but tame it. That is on a whole other level of idiocy," Luffy Naruto said while Zoro and Sanji nodded with him. While they were talking, one of the Kraken's tentacles came down and was about to hit the Sunny until Frankie shouted chicken voyage. And the Sunny evaded the incoming attack. Then Naruto turned his attention towards Caribou, who was trying his best to get out of Naruto's prison, but to no avail as every time he put his hands through the bars, his hand caught fire. Caribou then looked at Luffy and shouted, "Wait. If you want to go outside so badly, then I have an idea," he shouted. After a few minuets of getting Naruto, Luffy, Sanji and Zoro their own personal bubble, they began to run, which was hard due to the coating, making them feel like a sumo wrestler or something like that. They then jumped off the ship and outside into the ocean. Naruto felt a little better being able to move about underwater, so he didn't feel as sick as he usually does. More of the Kraken's tentacles came towards the ship, but then Zoro appeared in front of it before it could attack, three-sword style. Crossing of six paths. He shouted as he spins and creates an S shape with his swords before slashing at one of the Kraken's tentacles, causing it to split into 6 pieces while the Kraken cries out in agony. But before Zoro could attack again, Luffy kicked him in the side. "Hey. Don't kill him, I want to keep him alive so I can tame him," Luffy shouted at Zoro as he rubs his side a bit, but before Luffy could begin his taming, 2 more tentacles came towards them. This caused Sanji and Naruto to appear. Naruto then pulls out his palm and pump his devil fruit power into it and then begins to spin it, creating what looked to be a shield with a fox head made of fire appear in the middle. Yo no fox shield. One of the tentacles collide with the shield, which causes the whole tentacle to be erupted into flames, while Sanji uses his diable jamble and kicks the other tentacle, which in turn causes the tentacle to end up cooked. This causes Luffy to cry because his pet was being cooked alive, while also foaming at the smell of the cooked tentacle. He then shakes his head, telling himself that he can't eat his pet. He then bites his thumb. Gear 3rd. He then pulls his arms back like a giant pistol, except he then says Busashoku Koka. After he coats his giant arms in hockey, he finally shouts Gomu Gomu no elephant gun, and ended up socking the Kraken straight in the jaw, knocking it out in the process. What the others didn't expect to say, though, was a shark wearing a t-shirt swim out of one of the Kraken's holes and swam towards the Straw Hats, and then it began to what they thought was thanking them before began swimming towards Fishman Island. And before the 4 could head back to the ship, there was a huge current which caught them all off guard and swooped them in all directions, sending them off course. "What the hell is this?" Naruto shouted before he was blown out of sight. Naruto. The 3 shouted before them 2 were blown away by the current. With Naruto woke up to what sounded like giggling. He slowly opened his eyes and saw what looked like the sky, but he could make out what looked like fish swimming in the sky. "So did I make it to Fishman Island?" he asked himself, not noticing the figures that were around him until he heard a feminine voice. "Yes, you're on Fishman Island," he heard her say, which caught his attention as he sat up and looked to who it was that answered his question, only to see mermaids. "Very sexy mermaid Naruto," he scolded himself while some blood went down his nose, but what scared him the most was that his mindscape was probably being flooded by Kurama's blood, which caused Naruto to chuckle. "Damn, Hero Fox is having an effect on me," he thought before he turned his attention towards the mermaids. "Sorry, hey, I'm Naruto," he said with a smile, which caused the mermaids to blush and made Naruto smirk. One of the mermaids decided to swip up to Naruto with a smile and a small wink. "Hey handsome Ishli," the now named Ishli introduced herself. She had long curly hair that were split into pigtails with flowers tied around them. Her hair went to her mid-back section. She wore a stripy black and white bra that matched her tail, which was also stripy with black and white stripes. In Naruto's opinion, she was the sexiest one out of the mermaids he could see in front of him. Then again, they all were. Naruto smiled at the black-haired mermaid. "Nice to meet you, Ishli Haim," he teased, causing her to blush a much darker shade of red. But before he could continue his conversation with the mermaid, he looked around her and noticed another mermaid coming towards them with green hair. "Who is that?" Naruto asked, pointing over her shoulder, which caused her to look to where he was pointing and gasped, "Kami." She squealed in delight as she hugged her friend as their breasts pressed up against each other, which caused him to have another nosebleed, and he was sure that if he went into his mindscape head wither Droden blood or find a different colored Kurama, red Kurama, then Naruto noticed Luffy Usopp Chopper and a nearly dead Sanji. Hey guys. Naruto waved at them, which caused Luffy to look over to him. Naruto. He smiled at him and walked towards him and began talking about what happened. What? You mean to tell me that out of anywhere on Fishman Island you landed in the best place? Sanji shouted before crying and I'm tears while Naruto just smirked as he wrapped his arms around Ishili's waist, causing her to blush a lot. Yup. Naruto replied as he rested his chin on her shoulder, much to her embarrassment. Well, we gotta find the rest of the crew, so we will see you soon, Himes, Naruto said before he heard them talking about someone by the name of Papagu. Who is he asked while looking at Kami. He is a famous designer, she said with a smile, as she turned to look at Luffy. Luffy, I will take you to Shirley, she said as she began swimming towards the Fishman city through one of the water tunnels. While they were walking, Naruto was talking to Luffy about what happened while he was out cold as he talked about how the crew were attacked by the new Fishman pirates who were riding sea monsters and how Sanji was crying about finally being able to meet beautiful mermaids, which caused Naruto to sweat drop. Oh look, this is one of Papagu-sama's store, she said as the Straw Hats heard a familiar voice coming from in the store. Oh no, I know that voice anywhere, Usopp said with a sweat drop as they walked inside and noticed that Nami was at the counter, trying to get a 90% discount for the clothes, which caused them all to sweat drop except Sanji and Luffy, as Sanji was too busy jumping around shouting Nami Swine. And Luffy was just laughing. Come on, just give me a 90% discount, Nami pleaded with the store owner, as he was about to deny her request for the 100th time. A starfish with sunglasses and a Bob Marley hat walked in. What's the problem, he asked, as his glasses twinkled in the light as he tried to act cool, as the store owner sighed in relief. Oh Papagu-sama, this lady is trying to scam us, he said, while pointing at Nami, as he cried in I'm tears, as Papagu just smiled. It's fine, they are the aunts the save Hachibi, so for the Straw Hats it's all free, Papagu said with a huge grin, as Nami now had stars in her eyes. Really? She said, not believing him as he just nodded to her with a smile. Take whatever you want, he said. Papagu lost his smile as soon as his store was now empty of all clothes as Luffy, Sanji and Usopp were carrying large bags of clothes on their back. Naruto just chuckled at Nami, getting every piece of clothing the store had to offer, which in her case was everything. The Straw Hats now stood outside of what looked like a cafe, while Sanji was foaming out of his mouth at the thought of going inside the mermaid cafe, and Kurama wasn't faring any better, as he was literally flooding Naruto's mindscape with his drool and blood, which caused Naruto a large headache. After sorting his problem out, he walked inside, and to the Straw Hat surprise, Brook walked out with the biggest blush on his face. Not that I can blush. Ho. Stop breaking the fourth wall, Brook. As they then noticed all of the fishmen and mermaids around them gasp as they looked up at the sky. Look in the sky, he has came down from the palace. A fish mad shouted as the Straw Hats looked up to notice a huge merman riding a whale. That is one big merman, Usopp said, as Luffy and Naruto tilted their heads. Who's the shaggy old man, they said in unison, as Papagu gripped hold of Luffy's cheek. Show some respect to the person in front of you. Papagu shouted as he pulled on his gums. Not that Luffy noticed why his King Neptune came to grate the humans, a random mermaid said to herself as she looked as Neptune looked down at the Straw Hats with a neutral expression. Oh hey, there's that shark we saved on our way to Fishman Island, Nami said as she pointed at the shark wearing the t-shirt. Neptune cleared his throat as he looked at them. Straw Hat pirates, I King Neptune invite you to join me in Ryugu Palace. Neptune said to them as Kami and Papagus as well as all the people within hearing distance jaws to drop, as if not believing what he was saying. Naruto, however, rested his hands behind his head and began walking away. No thanks, I want to explore Fishman Island more, but what he didn't expect was for Nami to join him. I'll come with you, she smiled, all too innocent smile which caused Naruto to smirk, but in the background, Sanji glared daggers in Naruto's back, but he let them go for now as the rest of the crew headed for the palace. Somewhere near the Fishman district. The pirate ship can be seen heading away from Fishman Island. However, there was a fishman blocking the ship's path. As the pirates noticed the fishman, he began to panic. Hodi Jones. One of the pirates shouted as the captain looked ahead. Oh no, he's found us. Another pirate shouted as the captain noticed something. Wait. He has handcuffs on. He shouted in disbelief as Hodi had a psychotic look in his eyes with the biggest shark-like grin while he stared at the panicking humans in front of him. As the crew were staring fearfully at Hodi, he suddenly disappeared from their line of sight, only for one of the pirates to shout, he has got through the mast. Then out of nowhere he burst through the deck of the ship with one of the pirate's lifeless body in between his teeth. Hodi then continued to slaughter the pirate crew as blood sprayed all over the ship as the captain charged towards Hodi. I've fought and killed fishmen before and you're no different. He shouted as he thrust his sword in a downwards motion, intending to sever Hodi's head, but it never came as Hodi smirked before he opened his wide jaw and bit of the captain's head off as the remainders of the pirates watched in horror as their captain's headless body fell to the ground. After Hodi dealt with the captain, he began to beat the rest of the crew until they were at death's door. Take them to the new world. Hodi ordered as one of his crew came and looked at the crew and sighed, oh dear, I do hope they are not dead, as the rest of Hodi's crew just shouted Roger boss. And began to pick up the near dead crew. They had better be alive because I need them to send a message to the world above, Hodi said, with an evil glint in his eye. Tell them all, strike fear into the hearts of the land-dwelling human scum. He shouted as the fishmen around him cheered at their leader, for we will seize Fishman Island, center of the world, from that supposed god Neptune. We will show them who are the true strongest race. As he shouted as the new Fishman pirates blew up into full-blown shouting. Mermaid Cove. The mermaids were currently sitting around their cove as they chatted with each other and had games of Go Fish the Irony XDOY lost again, one of the mermaids said as she cried in tears. As they were playing, they started to get curious about the barrel that was nailed up. One of the curious pulled out a hammer that seemed to appear out on nowhere as her curiosity got the best of her. As she began to take the nails out and slowly lifted the lid up, they noticed eyes in the darkness of the barrel as muck shot out and trapped all of the mermaids. Kaya. They screamed at the horrible feeling of being trapped by the horrible muck as a man rose from the muck, chuckling evilly as the mermaids screamed for someone to help, but he put the muck over their mouths to stop them from screaming anymore. Thank you, little mermaids, for setting me free. I wonder how much mermaids go for these days. If I'm right, they go for about 70 million, he said while licking his lips at the mermaids as they looked at him in horror, and to their relief they could see a blonde walking behind their kidnapper as his hair hid his eyes so that they could only see a pair of beaming red eyes behind Caribou. Not that he noticed until Caribou heard what sounded like knuckles cracking as he began to sweat slightly as he turned round to see Naruto with Nami behind him as Straw Hats. He panicked, but before he could run, the air was knocked out of his lungs as he was punched into the side of a wall. You ladies okay? Naruto asked in his normal kind tone, which caused the mermaids to blush. Thank you, Naruto, Ashiri cried as she lunged into his chest while crying, saying how scared she was of being sold to someone like a noble, which made Naruto's blood boil. At the mention of a world noble, Naruto just ran his hands through her hair as he whispered soothing words into her ear while Nami was talking with the other mermaid while secretly looking over at Naruto and blushing a bit. Alright girls, I gotta go. Since I got to escort Orange-chan, he said, referring to Nami, who glared blushed at the nickname. Hey, she yelled at him as the mermaids whined. Aw, the mermaids cried due to not wanting their savior to go. Yet do you have to, Ashiri said with a pout as Naruto nodded his head with a smile as she hesitantly let him go so that he could take Nami to the nearest casino, which he told her he had the devil's luck, which caused belly size to appear in Nami's eyes. Shirley's Cafe. The three princes of Fishman Island are currently talking with the fortune teller Shirley as she had claimed she has seen a vision of Straw Hat Luffy destroying Fishman Island. Fukabashi, one of the three princes, can be seen talking with her. So Madam Shirley, are you certain that this future you claim to have seen, is it true? Will Straw Hat Luffy destroy Fishman Island? Fukabashi asked the large mermaid as one of her cafe workers came towards her. Madam Shirley, drink some water, she said as she thanked her and drank down the water. Yes, what I saw is beyond doubt, it is most certainly the truth, she said as she shook a bit at the information. Madam Shirley, word of the accuracy of your fortune tellings has reached even as far as the royal palace. How unfortunate. I had intended to approach the Straw Hats with friendly intentions, benefactors of my sister's pet that they are, but considering the future, uncertain though it may be, it is clearly not prudent to allow them to roam free, he said before turning towards his two brothers. We will have to take measures to prevent this. With Naruto and Nami Casino. Naruto and Nami can be seen in one of the public casino as they were winning every round that was before the owner walked towards them sweating heavily. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave because you have currently drove the casino into bankruptcy, he said while crying in tears, which caused Naruto to chuckle a bit. Okay, I'm leaving. Come on, Nami, you okay? Naruto said as Nami's belly eyes were shining and she looked like she just had an orgasm. So Naruto took out a storage scroll and sealed 600 million beer in them and walked out of the casino with a small chuckle as he had to carry Nami outside. Nami, there's a man stealing free clothes, he whispered in her ear, which caused her to snap out of her dazed state. Free clothes? She shouted looking around. Haha, sorry, Orange-chan had to get you out of your dazed state. He laughed as she pouted. Oh, I was looking forward to getting free clothes too, she said as she then realized she was being carried bridal style, which caused her to blush a bit, which didn't go noticed by Naruto. Nami, want me to put you down? He whispered huskily in her ear, which caused her to blush even more. No, I like this, she said, snuggling more into his chest, which caused Naruto to smile as he continued to carry her. Hey Naruto, she asked while still in a bridal carry him. He hummed to show he was listening. How did you and Kurama meet? She asked, which caused him to stiffen a bit, which she noticed. Sorry I asked, she said, but Naruto just smiled. He has been with me since I was born. You see, my father was the leader of the village that I came from. They are known as Hokage, and one day a man in a mask named Obito attacked our village and stole me when I was a baby. He blackmailed the Hokage into releasing the tailed beast, which he did, and this tailed beast was the nine-tailed fox, otherwise known as Kurama, he said, which caused her to gasp a bit. Then he continued, when Kurama was released, he was caught under a genjutsu by Obito, which caused Kurama to go on a rampage and destroyed 3/4 of the village and left many families wanting revenge on the Nine Tails. Since my father knew he could not defeat Kurama, he had to seal him again, and at the time I was the only option, so he ended up sealing it in me, he said, while she rested her head in the crook of his neck. After sealing Kurama in me, he was taken away by the Shinigami death god, so my parents ended up dying before me, as Kurama had killed them, he said with a sad smile. Well, inside the mindscape, Kurama felt that Naruto still hated him for that, decided not to, but after a couple of years of being an orphan, I was kicked out because when I said that the people that lost their family to the Nine Tails wanted revenge on him, thought that the Nine Tails had been reincarnated into me, so every day they would always glare and call me demon or any other words that would relate to it, he said, which caused Nami to openly sob into Naruto's chest. Although on my birthday, aka the day of the Nine Tails attack, they would always be mobs that would come and brutally beat me with any weapons they could find, from using sticks to jutsu and shuriken. This would happen every birthday, and sometimes it would happen when it wasn't even my birthday. Over the years, Kurama would try to corrupt my mind into using his power, but one day I met Kurama for the first time. I met Kurama, I demanded he give me power, but back then I was a little brat. He chuckled a bit while inside his head, Kurama was nodding his head, agreeing with Naruto completely. Anyway, over the years I managed to befriend so much that I consider him a brother and all but blood, he said with a smile, and if Kurama didn't have so much pride he would have burst into tears, but he did let a single teardrop go with a huge fox grin on his face. So that was how I met and became friends, brothers with Kurama, he said with a grin. After Nami stopped sobbing and his story, she looked up at him. I guess I have a similar story to you with the old Fishman pirate, she said, as she began telling her story to him about Bellamy and Arlong and how Luffy protected her. At the end of her story, Naruto kissed Nami's forehead as she was crying into his chest again, but blushed when he kissed her head. However, before they could continue their talk about 15 fishmen wearing something like a royal guard uniform, Naruto, the Foxfire Sage, you are under arrest and we would like you to come to the royal palace with us, the captain said with authority in his voice, but was shaking like a leaf as Naruto put Nami down and began cracking his knuckles. Finally, I then fight again after 2 years, Naruto said as he walked towards them with his hands behind his head and a bored expression on his face. Chapter end. Chapter 8, Fishman Island. Part 2. As Naruto walked towards the royal Fishman guards, Naruto slowly spread his arms out wide, spread his fingers, and muttered a few words under his breath before all hell broke loose. Yo no flame dance. Before the guards even knew what was happening, several vine-like blue flames shot out from behind Naruto, causing them to make contact with anything within its range, hitting the guards in the process, knocking them all unconscious. Naruto could not help but smirk at the chaos that he had caused. Hey, having a demon inside you all of your life can change you. Oh, I love a good warm-up, Naruto said as he slowly looked over to Nami, who couldn't help but giggle and shake her head. And Naruto's bluntness, let's go find the others, Naruto, and find out what is going on, since you knocked out all of the guards and now I don't have anyone to interrogate, she says with a gleam in her eye, which sends a small shiver down Naruto's spine. Damn. You remind me a bit of Anko, he says with a chuckle. However, before they could begin their search, they noticed a large royal carriage being pulled by dolphins. The door to said carriage slowly opened and came out 3 fishmen. Damn, it looks like we didn't make it in time to stop out guards. Naruto looked up at the one in the middle to look at one of the mermen. He had shoulder-length blue hair that also went down to his lower back. He was also wearing a short purple waistband that covered his lower body with a light blue sash wrapped around it and also went under his arms and around his head. He was also carrying what looked to be a golden trident. The 2 mermen next to him wore similar clothing, only in different color, and they were wearing hats. One of them was slightly pudgy, while the other one was skinny. The muscular one slowly swam forward towards Naruto. I am sorry for the royal guards, they believe that the Straw Hats have taken over the royal palace and have kidnapped my sister. My name is Fukabashi, and these 2 behind me are my brothers Ryabashi and Manbashi, he says with a smile. Naruto and Nami sweat dropped slightly at their names, Wats with a bashi at the ends of their names, they thought while smirking back at them. It's fine, I haven't found a good match against me anyways, so I needed a warm-up, he says with a chuckle, while Fukabashi's eye twitched slightly due to his guards being used as practice dummies for the pirate in front of him. After Naruto was done with his rant about the royal guards, Nami decided to ask, what made you think we would want to kidnap the princess? she says, already guessing who was behind it since they were with them not too long ago. Well, that was why we came to stop the guards, but we were too late, he says with a chuckle, as Naruto rubs his chin slightly. Well, I can't purr clank. Naruto answers the snail, forgot the name, hey Naruto, can you hear me? The voice of Sanji was heard on the end of the line. Yeah, we hear you. So, where are you guys? Yeah, we are currently at a graveyard called Sea Forest Inn with Jinbei as well, so feel free to come here. Oh, and by the way, is Nami Swain with you? He says with hearts in his eyes at the end of his sentence. Well, Naruto couldn't help but wince and rub his sensitive ears. Ooh, oh my ears. Naruto Kurama say while rubbing said ears while crying and I'm tears. Shut up you shitty cook, my ears are bleeding here, he says while Saji gets a slight eye twitch. Shut it food topping, and tell me if Nami Swan is with you, he says a little bit quieter this time. Yes, I'm here Saji-kun, I'm with Naruto-kun at the moment, she says with a smile, while Naruto twitches slightly at hearing Sanji scream down the snail asking things like if she was okay, and as the whiskered Gaki is looking after you, Naruto ignores the jab and raises an eyebrow at the kun honorific, then smirks slightly as he says okay Sanji, we will be there soon, Naruto says Circa-chan, as he puts the snail away for later while smirking at Nami, so Nami-chan it's Naruto-kun now, he says teasingly while wrapping his arm around her waist causing her to blush slightly, but gets a gleam in her eye and presses her breasts into the side of his chest, she answers sultry. Sea Forest with Frankie, Sanji, Robin and Jinbei. Sanji can be seen grumbling to himself about shitty fox brat and stealing Nami Swan away, while Robin and Jim are currently having a conversation about the Sun Pirates and their past as well as other things that has happened on Fishman Island in the past, such as the queen being assassinated by a human, but they both had their suspicions on who it was, Jinbei being one of them, although he wasn't able to find any proof, and Robin due to her high bring. Well, Robin Jinbei sighed slightly before slowly standing up, and he slowly looked over at both of the Straw Hats with slightly narrowed eyes. I'm sorry about this, but I will not let Luffy take on Hodi Jones. Just as he said that, a large shark landed in the graveyard, with Luffy sitting on top of its head. She looks like I found the sunny, he said, with his usual grin plastered on his face. He looked over and noticed Sanji and Robin, with Jinbei. Hey guys, he said with a wave before he suddenly fell off the shark's head due to it looking like it was having a panic attack, as it looked like it was trying to keep its mouth open until he wasn't able to hold on any longer and vomited out a Princess Kai as she screamed as she was suddenly out in the open. Jim was jaw dropped when he seen the princess get spat out of her pet shark, while Sanji currently had his back to them as he was busy attending to Robin much to her displeasure, not that she'd show it. Princess. What in Neptune's name are you doing here? He shouted at her only to be shocked again, as Luffy made himself know. She said she wanted to see what the sea forest looked like, since it's always been a dream of hers, he says with his hands behind his head, while Jim was debating on whether or not he should kill Luffy. Jim sighed and looked over at Luffy. Luffy-kun, don't you know she's been having assassination attempts on her life for years now? There is a reason she has not been allowed out of her tower, he says to him while he began scolding the princess. Of course I know, which it's why I'm going to protect Coward-chan until she is back in the tower, he says with complete seriousness, while Jim could only sigh and look over at Luffy. On to another matter, I don't want you to fight Hodi Jones. But Naruto and the three princes. Naruto could only sigh as he rested his head back against the chair. I wish Nami was here, he says crying and I'm tears when he remembered that she wanted to meet up with the other Straw Hats at the Sea Forest. She also wanted to meet Jim. Naruto could only sigh as he sat in the carriage with the three princes on his way to the castle. As he looked out the window he noticed that there was smoke coming from the castle. Hey Fukabashi, does the castle usually have smoke coming out of it? He asked with narrowed eyes. Something's not right here, Fukabashi, then looked out of the other window and noticed that there was in fact smoke coming from the castle, which caused him to gasp. Something bad is happening at the castle, step on it. He roared to the driver as the driver nodded before whipping the carriage, causing it to move faster. Here Fukabashi throws over to him, which looks like some sort of button. Press the button, and it should give you a temporary bubble, which should help you move around without having to deal with your weakness, he says, as Naruto gives him a nod of gratitude before he prepares himself for the enviable battle ahead. Naruto stepped out of the carriage now encased within a bubble with his legs outside the bubble and began to skywalk towards the palace, leaving the carriage in the distance while he had a huge smirk on his face. Skywalk, gotta thank Shanks for teaching me some of the CP9 moves, he says to himself as he is now left standing in front of the doors to the palace, which look like they have seen better days, as he slowly walks inside the palace, which doesn't seem to have water inside some of the areas. As he gets rid of the bubble and walks inside and he sweat drops at what he sees. What are you doing? He asks with a twitching eyebrow at the three culprits, causing two of said culprits to jump and hide. Zoro was not having a good day. First, when he was taken to the palace he was planning on having a nap, then the guards suddenly pointed their weapons at him and said he was going to be arrested for the supposed kidnapping of their princess. Since Luffy was nowhere to be seen they tried to put two and two together and immediately thought it was the Straw Hats who had kidnapped her, so he Usopp and Brook had no choice but to knock the king, his advisors and the guards out before tying them up so that they wouldn't try to attack them again, and as they were finished tying them up, he heard his two crewmates squeak and hide behind him, which caused him to raise an eyebrow until he heard "What are you doing?" He then turned around and saw Naruto standing there with his hands crossed above his chest and was showing an amused look at them. Zoro sighed as he began to tell him what was happening. Well, Luffy is currently at the sea forest, so that is probably where the princess is, he said, while rubbing his chin. So you did kidnap my baby. He shouted at Naruto, which caused Naruto to narrow his eyes at the king. No, she told Luffy she always wanted to go there and see what it was like, but since you always kept her locked in a tower like some sort of Rapunzel, he said with a glare causing them to gulp slightly. Naruto sighed as he turned round and walked outside the castle and got inside another bubble before he started heading towards the sea forest, almost letting out a whine as he did so. I have been walking and swimming around all day. I want to stay in one area, he says, crying and I'm tears until he started meditating. Well, his bubble got pulled into the water rift that had a label for sea forest above it and decided to enjoy the ride. Hey Kurama, you there? Naruto said telepathically. Per him. Yeah, I'm here. Per Kurama said through purrs, which almost caused Naruto to bust a lung, trying not to laugh. Did you just purr? He said while holding in his laughter, which caused him to hear a growl in the back of his mind. It's not my fault, I am being petted by the sexy archaeologist here, he said with a growl. Purr as Naruto managed to get his laughter under control. Cough. Anyways Kurama, tell Robin-chan that I'm on my way to the sea forest and that Luffy has pissed off the royal family, he says with a chuckle at how he knows that Luffy probably won't care in the slightest. Sea forest with the others. After Jinbei had finished telling Nami about the Sun Pirate's backstory, Nami said she held no grudge to him, yet there were still some fishmen out there that she could not stand. For Jinbei then turned his attention on Luffy, but before he could make himself known to the Straw Hat Captain, Robin cut in Luffy-kin. Robin said to Luffy to catch his attention from playing with a shark, which it did as he turned around to look at Robin. What is it, Robin? He asked with a smile. Naruto-kun is on his way here to see us and that the royal palace are quite angry at you for kidnapping the princess, she said with a small giggle. While Nami could only shake her head in annoyance at Luffy laughed slightly at this, but before he could reply to Robin, Jinbei beat him to it. Naruto? As in Foxfire Naruto? The one who has a 410 million Beely bounty, he asked with comical eyes, and jaw dropped as Nami just rubbed her head while Luffy laughed. Yup, that Naruto, guess his bounty went up from when I seen him at Marineford, he said as Jinbei looked up from his momentary shock and took on a serious face. Luffy-kun, I do not want you to fight Hodi Jones, he said as Luffy looked at him blankly for a second before standing up to him. What? Why not? I was planning on kicking his ass anyways, he says as he narrows his eyes at Jinbei as he sees him get in his fish kata stance while glaring at Luffy, because I know you can't beat him and that you should not interfere with Fish Island's problems, he says as they were about to start fighting until they both hear a loud yawn from above them and look to see Naruto laying down on the Sunny's grass deck in a potion that would make people think of Zoro except Sanji, who was still stunned. What I miss? He asked as he sat up from his small nap before smiling down at Robin and Nami, which caused them both to blush slightly. Naruto nodded his head slightly as he listened to Luffy and Jinbei go at it with each other like a couple of children. I understand, but Jinbei, you know that Luffy can beat him and you also know that he would be nothing but a warm-up for me unless he decides to eat every single one of those pills you told me out, then he might actually cause me to get serious, he says with a fox-like grin that made even Kurama proud, he says as Jinbei could only growl in annoyance. Well, Jinbei was cut off from this rant from the Treenspender snail. Purra 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 it goes of as Naruto picks up the snail. Hello up, he says with a smirk as he suddenly gets serious. Naruto, this is Zoro. After you left the palace, a fishman called Hodi Jones came and took the king, saying stuff about wanting to take over Fishman Island and that he was going to kill King Neptune. We need your help ASAP. He heard through the transponder snail as Naruto nodded. Okay, so where are you? He asked as Zoro looked around. However, before he could answer, Usopp took the snail from his hand. Don't go asking Zoro those kind of questions, he shouted with a tick mark on his head as Zoro's eyebrow started twitching at the jab to his sense of direction. We are currently in a town that has been turned into a wassail land thanks to the Hodi Jones and his crew, who have now named themselves the new Fishman Pirates, he says as Naruto hears Nami gasp in fear. The Sunny should be facing the direction of the town, so hurry please, they are surrounding us and there is a lot of them, he shouted while shaking in fear as Naruto nods his head. Okay, we will be there in a few, he said as he smirks. Frankie, he shouts as he hears a small eye from below deck. Prepare the coup to burst, he shouts as he hears another sound of eye from below deck. Everyone get on the ship, that includes you, princess, he shouts as everyone gets on the ship as Frankie down in the engineering begins to pull levers and push buttons before he comes to the big lever and shouts coup de burst. As he shouts this, the large thruster at the back of the ship begins to power up before blasting off into the distance unknown town that is now a battlefield. Zoro is currently in his three-sword style stance fighting a group on no-name pirates. Antoryu, Great Dragon Twister, He shouts as he spins his blades while being surrounded, causing all he pirates that were around him to be lifted into the air, throwing them in all directions with deep sword cuts all over their body as Zoro lands, not looking the least bit tired, only to find more pirates than before around him than there was before. What? How annoying, he says before he sets down into a crouching postilion, with his arms crossed and his swords being held just above his hip and his other sword still in his mouth. Santoryu. Extreme tiger cut. He shouts as he disappears from their view only to appear behind the pirates, causing blood to splurt out of all the pirates' mouth and fall to the ground either unconscious or most likely dead. Now that he was not surrounded as much as before, only to see a lot more running towards him with their weapons held high and smug grins on their faces. That 320 million bounty is mine. Most of them shouted as Zoro slowly started to get annoyed. Get out of my way, trash, he growled as he threw his sword diagonally, creating a large blue slash that headed towards them, causing some of them to hold up their swords ready to block the strike and most of them to try and run for cover. Those that tried to block the strike had their blades sliced in half and were now dead on the floor. Some of them were even decapitated from the strike. As he was about to take another strike, he heard something coming towards him, and as he turned around, his normally calm and annoyed look in his eye turned to one of shock and fear as he looked towards what was coming towards him. The thousand sunny well shit. Ooh that was a nice ride, Naruto said as he stepped off the ship unknowingly standing on a body. He says as he looks down and notices the dazed and bruised body of Zoro on the ground. Damn, I guess the pirates got to him, he says as he sheds a single tear for the loss of his crewmate. If I had known you were that weak, I wouldn't have became crewmates with you, he says, as if Naruto could see Zoro's face. He would see a lot of tick marks, his eyebrow twitching and looking like he was about to pop. The blood vessel bastard. Zoro yelled as he tried to punch, yes, punch Naruto, as Naruto jumped back looking honestly surprised. What the hell, Zoro? He shouted as Zoro pointed his sword at Naruto. It wasn't the pirates that got me like this, it was the Sunny. He shouted comically while completely forgetting about the approaching army, who are currently shocked at the fact that a ship had just appeared and crushed some of their crew in the process. Naruto then did something he has not done in a while. He rolled up his sleeve where a tattoo seal was on his wrist as he by his thumb and swiped it across his wrist and smoke covered him, and what showed actually scared a lot of the main crew. Naruto stood there with what looked like a large cape that covered his body with a large palm that was now bigger since the last time they seen it, and picture him with Whitebeard's cape, but it is black with blue flames on the bottom and a palm similar to Whitebeard's, though it has a black blade and the other end of the blade is made of sea stone. Naruto slowly started walking towards the enemy with a large grin on his face as he looked over to the charging pirate army as his eyes then changed into something that shocked even Kurama the Sharingan. He says quite shocked by that little bitter information that Naruto had an eternal Mangekyou Sharingan. Then Naruto said something that shocked him even more. Yo no Susanoo, Naruto says as flames burst up from all around him surrounding him in what looked to be a humanoid fox with 10 tails looking down at the pirates with bright blue eyes as the flames surrounded Naruto, looked like a large ribsage. Then the fox's claw came out and a brighter flame that the fox itself appeared, which looked like a sword of pure blue fire as he grinned at the shaking army. It's showtime, bitches. End chapter. Cliffhanger. Chapter 9, Fishman Island. Part 3, Straw Hats v Fishman Pirates. Naruto slowly walked towards the now slightly scared pirates, with all of the main group of pirates breaking out into a slight sweat from the intimidating fox that was about the same size as the Kraken, maybe a bit bigger. The pirates that had them all surrounded suddenly began to sprout false hope to each other, like that can't be real. Or we are stronger in numbers, which caused most of the pirates to gain back some of their cocky attitude towards the Straw Hats, which caused Naruto to gain a feral grin at seeing the pirates resume their charge towards him and the others. Naruto slowly pulled his sword to the side, preparing for a large swipe with his sword before swinging it round, causing a large blade-like slash to form from the blade. The large slash destroyed everything in its path, wiping out a large portion of the Fishman army that now lay either dead or unconscious on the ground. Naruto then disabled his Susanoo as he began walking towards them. He then suddenly slams both his palms onto the ground. Yo no, Fox's rage. 6 flames rise from the ground that take the shape of foxes with red slit eyes as 5 of them charge forwards and when made contact with create a large explosion of his flames that caused the pirates to be blown away. Art is an explosion, Naruto said with a laugh at his own mimicry of the bomber from his old world. He was taken away from his thoughts when he heard the 4 more explosions in the background. He then put his hand on the head of the last fox that stayed with him and pumped it with more of Gis Foxfire, causing it to expand. He then pointed forwards towards the red Fishman pirates, who were currently shocked at his demonstration of power. The fox disappeared from sight and appeared in front of Hodi. I know I've been spelling his name wrong and I'm sorry, XD, raising its paw in the air before slashing him across the chest, causing him to howl in pain before being blown back due to the fox exploding, which was much bigger than the others, causing all of his crew to be blown away as well. Luffy pouted slightly at Naruto, but Naruto couldn't tell because Luffy also had stars in his eyes as he looked at Naruto cool. You didn't tell us you could create foxes. That Naruto could only chuckle at Luffy being well Luffy. He then turned his attention back towards the Fishman pirate's captain, who was now standing up again, but with a lot of effort if his limping and bulging muscles was any way to show. Hodi coughed up some blood as he looked down, and the 5 slash marks that now shone on his chest with some heavy burn marks as well. He growled as he looked up at Naruto and the other Straw Hats, with nothing but malice and pure hatred. "Damn you puny humans," he growled out as he raised his arms and started firing what looked like water droplets towards them, but at incredible speeds water shot. Naruto coated his arms in haki and with even faster movements, blocked all of the incoming projectiles that Hodi is still launching at him. Naruto began to get annoyed at the ongoing barrage and decide to counter it. "Yo yo no gun," he shouted as he began to shoot out bullets of flames that countered Hodi's water shot as his attack was even being pushed back while the other Straw Hats ran off to fight their own battle. Hodi growled more as he put his arms inside a water source and threw his arms forwards. "Arrow military shark," he shouted as the water that he was firing at him now looked to be faster and took the shape of an arrow. Naruto narrowed his eyes as he pulled out his polearm and he then began to slowly spin his weapon as it began to pick up speed. He called out, "Yo yo no fox shield," he shouted as Hodi's attack was completely neutralized. While this was happening, both failed to notice Luffy say Gomu Gomu no back with Naruto's solid defense. He began sprinting forwards towards Hodi. However, before he could attack him, Luffy appeared in front of Hodi jet pistol. Luffy shouted in his gear second form, thrusting his palm forward at a fast speed, causing Hodi to cough up more blood and be blown away into the face of the cliff, completely destroying the cliff in the process. Naruto growled as he looked over to Luffy. "Hey, this is my fight, you asshole." Naruto shouted at Luffy as he just laughed before looking at Naruto. "You have had your fun. Now it's my turn." Luffy shouted back while Naruto slowly gained tick mark on his head. However, before he could continue his rant at Luffy, he was approached by some strange no-name pirates. "We are the Iron Shell Squad," and another voice, "And we are the Bombardment Squad," they shouted as the Iron Squad were in front in a strange formation, while the Bombardment Squad lifted their rockets launchers at Naruto. Fire was heard as Nami gasped as well as Robin as they seen the hundreds of rockets being pelted at Naruto. "You're annoying," Naruto said in a cold voice that would have made Madara proud. Then they reached their target. "Yo yo no." Ooh. After the large explosion, both the squads were cheering and shouting that they can now take his bounty. However, as the smoke cleared, Naruto was nowhere to be found. "As I said, you're annoying," Naruto said in a very pissed off voice, which would have sent chills up even the likes of Kurama. The pirate squads were shocked as they turned around and realized that he was behind them, but they never got the chance to attack again, as Naruto said, "Blaze storm." Naruto finished his attack as a large tornado of flames swooped up all of the squads into said tornado and throwing them out in all directions with burns that left them nothing but a smoking crisp. Naruto sighed as he looked up to his original target but had to raise an eyebrow at what he seen as he could see Hodi eating what looked to be lots of pills, much to the shock and horror of his other crew members who are currently battling it out with the other Straw Hats. "Hey, now we don't want you having an overdose now," Naruto shouted in panic, not because of the outcome, but because his target might die and it won't be from any of their attacks. Hodi started to shake uncontrollably as he fell to his knees and let out an eerie cry. Saw his muscles began to bulge, his eyes turned dilated, and his hair turned a color of bleach white. After his transformation, he started to laugh almost psychotically. He then stood back up and looked at Luffy with a dark grin plastered across his face and raised his arm again. "Water shot," he shouted as the same water droplets from before shot out of his arms, but what surprised Luffy was that they were a lot faster than before, almost too much for him to follow with his haki. Naruto smirked as he noticed that Hodi had gotten a power-up, and if he had to guess, he probably got it from the overdose of pills he just consumed. Interesting, Naruto thought out loud as he began walking towards Hodi after he picked up his polearm, already knowing that he was going to come after him since the attack he just sent at Luffy had connected, although Naruto knew his captain would walk it off in a few minuets. But Kurama was pissed. Not only had she, yes she is a she now since she got the votes, but nobody knows that yet, been called things that should only be said to a dog like mother bitch, but these pirates had seriously big egos, almost as big as her. And that is saying something since she had a really big ego. She raised one of her claws and slashed at a large group of the pirates, spitting some of them in half, hence the reason she now has blood on her large claws. Damn, these fishmen are annoying as hell. Kurama shouted as she shot off some mini-tailed beast bombs at certain parts of the battlefield, causing large explosions to go off in all areas of the battlefield. Yup, she was pissed. But Robin and Nami are still on the sunny, but they have a perfect view of the chaos. However, the Straw Hats are used to this kind of stuff. Now well, except for Usopp and Chopper. Maybe Nami was using her power of the weather to call down thunder strikes on any pirates that managed to get close to the sunny, and Robin took out lots of pirates from a distance with her devil fruit ability. Nami and Robin also had a clear view of Luffy and Naruto's battle with Hodi and still can't help but worry for the blonde ninja, although they didn't know why their hearts felt warm after he walked out unscathed of the attack from the Fishman that launched lots of rockets and bombs at him. They thought he might have been seriously injured. Naruto-kun, they both said, but then they looked at each other for a second before giggling slightly. But Zoro is currently fighting a 8-style swordsman user who goes by the name Haizu. He is wearing a blue shirt and loose black tie with a black blazer over the top. His species is the blue-ringed octopus merman, and he is currently panting from what people would assume was an intense battle between the two swordsmen. Zoro was not impressed, not even the slightest, since this Fishman that claimed to be the best swordsman on Fishman Island is nothing but a weakling in his eyes, which only proves his point, as the only sort of damage Zoro had was his clothes, and the Fishman had lots of deep cuts all over his body. Haizu slowly reached into his blazer pocket and pulled out a handful of pills similar to the ones Hodi had, and he put them all in his mouth before swallowing them all whole. His whole body tensed as he began to go through the same transformation as Hodi, which is now the reason he also has bleach white hair and he looks a lot more stronger. Zoro narrowed his eyes at the merman. Something is different with you, Zoro stated as his opponent began to laugh. Ha 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 ha, I feel so much more powerful now. There is no way you can defeat me now. Zoro's sweat dropped at his proclaim, wondering if the Fishman even realized what happened a few minutes ago. Zoro readies all of his swords while getting in his own stance, ready for round 2 with him. Bring it. Zoro held out his swords ready for another strike. 3-sword style. Purgatory Demon Slash. He shouts as he slashes his swords forward while waiting for the Fishman to come into his range for the attack to connect. However, what he was not expecting was for his attack to miss and for the Fishman's attack to connect, causing him to lean forwards and cough up some blood. Zoro smirked as he looked up at the Fishman. His closed left eye was overshadowed, yet it was glowing red, slightly scaring the merman who thought he was invincible a few minutes ago. Zoro's swords looked as though they were pulsing in excitement as Zoro got in another stance with maniacal grin on his face. 3-sword style technique. Great 3000 Great Thousand Worlds. Zoro disappeared and reappeared on the Fishman's left side with his swords outwards. Blood appeared and the merman cried out in pain when he realized one of his tentacles had been reduced to sushi. Arg. Zoro gave himself some distance, and before the Fishman could recover, he crossed his arms in front of his face with his swords pointing upwards and began running towards his soon-to-be crippled or dead opponent. Purgatory Demon Slash. He roared as he slashed Haizu across his whole upper body, which caused him to let out a silent scream as his blood leaked from his body before his body fell forwards, either dead or unconscious. But Naruto and Luffy. Naruto smirked as he watched Zoro's fight with one of the Fishman pirates and one with barely taking a scratch. However, he was surprised when he saw the Fishman get back up, but Naruto had bigger fish to fry as he turned his sights on Hodi. Seems like one of your lackeys just became a 7-style swordsman now, eh? Naruto mocked as he stood up as he noticed that Hodi had began running towards him with the same speed he ran at Luffy. With Naruto lit his hands ablaze in his blue-black flames and crossed them over while still having his arms point towards Hodi. He then spun his arms around as his body also began to spin. Yo no blaze storm. A huge fire tornado shot out towards its target, but as Hodi was about to dodge the attack easily, Naruto smirked. Hodi lost all control in his body as he felt like he was being pulled into the tornado, but before he could react he was suddenly pulled inside as the pressure suddenly tripled. I love that move. The longer the tornado stays, the harder it is to stop yourself from being pulled in, since the pressure triples every few seconds. No one has ever escaped this attack, not even Whitebeard, Naruto said with an air of pride, since it's not every day you get to have a sparring match with Whitebeard and actually damage him. Arg. Hodi was managed to get out of the tornado for a split second before the tornado's pressure went up again to 6x its normal pressure, which caused him to get pulled back. An Arg arrow military shark. Hodi shouted as the water sharks began to attack the tornado, which caused it to lose balance and shoot off into a different direction, which caused Naruto to disperse his attack. Hodi looked worse for wear if he didn't already looked ugly, then now Naruto just felt pity towards him. That was until he was surprised when Hodi began to pull out what looked like a large vase and dug both of his fish hands into the vase and pulled out 2 large handfuls of the now identified energy steroids, and he began to eat them like they were his favorite snack. After a few minutes of waiting for the captain to finish his lunch, he then keeled over and began to cough up blood, but his eyes were no longer normal as they now looked like that of a beast that only followed its instincts as it launched forwards, catching Naruto off guard, uppercutted him, blasting him into the sky and through Fishman Island's bubble. He then bent his knees and launched himself after Naruto. Naruto vs Hodi. Naruto rubbed his head and wiped a bit of blood that ran down his lip away as he had activated his own personal bubble just in time, but it looked like he didn't need it as he was now standing on a very large ship which was about 10x or 20x bigger than the Sunny and it was heading straight for Fishman Island at a slow pace. Naruto stuck to the base of the ship thanks to Chakra. Naruto then did something he never thought he would do for some time now. He then smirked as he looked down at Hodi, who was now rocketing towards him. Unknown location above the sea. In the middle of a forest, 3 of Naruto's clones can be seen meditating with 3 legs crossed and their hands resting on their knees with wildlife running around them, although it was mostly birds and foxes, as some of the foxes were even sitting comfortably in one of the clones' lap. Then something surprised the wildlife as one of the clones poofed out of existence. Back with Naruto. Naruto smirked before his face became emotionless as his eyes stayed the same color, however he now had slits instead of his usual human pupils. It also looked as though he has blue eyeshadow on, however his biggest change was that his arms and legs now had dark blue tribal pattern, like tattoos on with shine blue from time to time. This was his new and improved Sage Mode Mark 1. Naruto smirked as he reached up and flexed his head until chakra began to swirl around his hands. He then pushed his devil fruit ability into the Rasengan. Okay, this is a prototype, so I have no idea what's going to happen. Naruto then looked at the new Rasengan, which took a darker shade of blue from the normal light blue it usually takes, and it also had what looked like multiple blue flame rings circling around the Rasengan. Naruto smirked at his new ability and began running down towards Hodi, who was now running towards him with while launching different water attacks at him. He then launched a new attack at Hodi. Yo no Rasengan Yo no spiraling foxfire sphere. Don't quote me on that since it took me an hour thinking of a shorter name for to give the technique since it's at least a sentence long if I use the translation, so it's completely awk and it's pronounced Rasengan. Naruto slammed the new move into Hodi's chest which caused flames to shoot out and cover Hodi in the flames before launching him into a part of the ship. Naruto was about to pull out his polearm again from his storage scroll since people seem to wonder how it keeps appearing from nowhere and was about to launch on final attack in Hodi until Gomu no elephant gun. Luffy shouted as a giant fist flew past Naruto coated in hockey. Naruto gained a tick mark at Luffy butting in again, but just sighed and flew his flames at Luffy's fist, igniting it on fire. No Luffy, this is a new technique, it's called Gomu no giant blue hawk. Naruto shouted, and just as it was about to hit Hodi roared Nuo, I will not let you destroy me or this ship's straw hat. Fox Age Fishman Island is destined to be destroyed, ha 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 ha. Hodi shouted as he continued to eat more and more of the energy steroids as his body bloated again in muscle, making him now taller than the red dog of the Marines. Hodi eats more steroids in this than what he does in canon. As the fist makes contact, Hodi grips onto the fist while roaring, I will not be defeated. He roars again as the giant fist is stopped completely, which caused Naruto to sigh, see Luffy, you should have left this for me. Luffy didn't give Naruto a reply as he was shocked that an upgraded version of the elephant gun had been stopped. Naruto pulled out his polearm and whispered to himself, Sage Art. Yo no Kyuubi / Naruto said as his polearm didn't move, however blue started heading towards Hodi, showing that Naruto did in fact attack, but it was too fast for Luffy or Hodi to follow. Hodi had no time to react as the slashed made contact with his body, while both of his arms were preoccupied trying to stop 2 other slashed from making contact with his body. All in all, he was fighting a losing battle with the slashes as he was being pushed back until he was at the edge of the ship and he had no choice but to slide to the left just in time as the slashed blasted off just as he let go and then flew off outside the bubble. However, one of the slashed made contact with his arm, but he didn't feel it at all as Hodi's eyes were now red and looking at Naruto with a smirk on his face. Naruto sighed again, damn, why can't this guy die? Naruto said as he launched the same attack again. This time they were bigger than before, and if they were any bigger, they would have cut the ship in half. Hodi was prepared this time, though ha giant arrow military shark. He shouted as a giant water shark gripped onto the slash with its teeth, which caused the 2 attacks to battle against each other until the shark won and cut through the slash and began charging towards Naruto. Naruto was ready for the attack to connect, but he was still in Sage Mode Mark 1 as he raised his arms and caught the shark by its teeth and pulling. If this was a real shark, the shark's jaw would have been snapped beyond repair. Luckily it wasn't, and as soon as he snapped its jaw, the shark dispersed into water, leaving an angry Hodi who was now behind Naruto. Too slow, Naruto said as he swung his polearm around. Yo no fox slash. Naruto shouted, which caused Hodi to be hit point blank by the attack, which sent him hurling back with blood now pouring his whole body with a limb, which looked like it would fall off at any moment due to the huge gash he now had in his arm. Naruto stood standing as he then looked down at Fishman Island and realized it was only a few minuets from the ship making contact with the island. There is no way you can't stop it now. It's all over for Fishman Island, it will perish as will you. He roared with insane laughter as Naruto had enough time playing around. Now alright little fishy, I'm done playing around with you. Naruto spread his arms outwards and pointed them both at Hodi and then disappeared and reappeared behind him. Yo no double blaze storm. Naruto shouted as two tornadoes blasted Hodi to the ship's hull, although Naruto's attack did cause good propellant to the ship, causing it to be pushed away from the island, giving Naruto a few more minuets to win the fight that they were having. Before Hodi could get out of the tornado, as it was near impossible since he was pushed up against a wall of the ship with the tornado still in place, Naruto did one more Sage Mode attack. Sage Art. Yo no darkness beam, Naruto said as his flames turned a very dark blue and shot at Hodi, blowing a hole straight through his chest. However, just as Naruto thought he had won, Hodi suddenly launched himself at Naruto, planning on ripping his head off with his last attack, but it never came. Yo no Foxfire invisible blade, Naruto said as he sealed his palm back into his arm, as both Hodi's arms fell off with his head began to slide to one side, showing that he had beheaded Hodi. Naruto walked away and picked up Luffy since he seemed to have fell asleep and disappeared from sight, planning on spending the rest of the time on Fishman Island with Nami and Robin, maybe both bad. Naruto, damn that pervy Sage and Fox for corrupting me, Naruto said as he appeared back on Fishman Island as he noticed that Sea Kings were leaving with the crippled ship in tow, leaving Fishman Island still standing. However, what he was not expecting was to see a red-haired and raven-haired woman talking with Nami and Robin, who seemed a little bruised from the battle, but Naruto's jaw dropped when the redhead turned around and looked at Naruto and gasped herself Kachan. Chapter end. The unexpected arrival. 3 days later, it has been 3 days since the Straw Hats battled and defeated the new Fishman pirates, and the people of Fishman Island are going to be celebrating the defeat of said pirates, though a certain blonde was into deep of a thought to care about that, as he is currently in one of the VIP rooms in the royal place, which would give a 5-star hotel a run for its money. Naruto is currently leaning over the balcony of his room admiring the view as his arms were folded and his eyes were closed to show how much in thought he was in. Naruto currently has a white towel over his shoulder with no shirt on, showing his chiseled body with a 6-pack borderline 8-pack, and we all know it's possible in the One Piece universe, which would probably give any mermaids a nosebleed if they swam past the balcony. He is also wearing a plain pair of dark blue shorts. Still deep in thought, he was currently thinking about a certain redhead he was not expecting to see unless he died, and now that he was past his puberty years in the 4th Shinobi War, he can officially say that she was one hot MILF, especially since her assets have got bigger and softer. If it were even possible, she seemed to have breasts that rivaled Nami and Robin's breasts. Her ass seemed to have gotten plumper and bigger, not that he would say it out loud, and while she seemed to have more curves than an F1 racetrack, not that he know what one is, mind you. How can she be in this universe, or a better question, how is she even alive? Naruto thought to himself as his partner decided to make himself know. Well, maybe if you hadn't fainted when you seen her, then you would have been able to ask her your questions, Kurama said from his mind as he walked to the balcony in his dog-sized fox form. Naruto resisted the urge to boot said fox of said balcony as he looked down at him. I would have if she didn't try to murder me, shouting Minato, you bastard, he said with a deadpan as he looked back out towards the ocean, remembering the day he first saw his Kachan mother. Flashback after defeating Hodi. Naruto walked away and picked up Luffy since he seemed to have fell asleep and disappeared from sight, planning on spending the rest of the time on Fishman Island with Nami and Robin, maybe both bad. Naruto, damn that pervy Sage and Fox for corrupting me, Naruto said as he appeared back on Fishman Island as he noticed that Sea Kings were leaving with the crippled ship in tow, leaving Fishman Island still standing. However, what he was not expecting was to see a red-haired and raven-haired woman talking with Nami and Robin, who seemed a little bruised from the battle, but Naruto's jaw dropped when the redhead turned around and looked at Naruto and gasped herself Kachan. Ishino, also known as the Red Death of the Element Nations, also known as the mother to Naruto, Uzumaki Namikaze, turned around and, to her point of view, looked very similar to Minato. However, before she even bothered to analyze the situation, she raised one of her swords and within the blink of an eye vanished. A loud clash could then be heard as the Straw Hats turned their heads towards Naruto to see that he currently had both of his arms raised into an X to block said attack with his Haki enabled. However, just as he blocked that attack, a huge shock wave blew behind him to show the force of the attack. What the? She said in surprise. However, before she could attack again, Naruto raised both his arms and blew her away with an unknown force. Naruto looked just as confused as everyone else as he looked at his hand, wondering what that was. Naruto was about to look up and ask her why she attacked him, but before he could, she suddenly disappeared from view. Naruto was still in a state of shock that his mother was still alive. The other Straw Hats also realized that the raven-haired female that was with her had also disappeared along with Kushina, although Naruto had a hunch on who it was, though he was not 100% sure yet. Naruto sighed slightly as he looked up to the sky of Fishman Island, wondering if he would see her again. Flashback end. While Naruto was thinking about his mother, the door to his room opened, showing a mermaid sitting on what looked like a floating ring bubble. He turned around to look at her with a smile, causing her to blush slightly. And Naruto-sama, the party is ready and your friends are waiting for you, she said as Naruto chuckled slightly before he walked towards his closet. I will be right with you, then he says as the mermaid now had steam coming out off her ears due to Naruto not wearing a shirt, causing him to smirk since he was quite fond of his physique. He then opened the drawers and rubbed his chin, wondering what to pick. A few minutes later Naruto walked out of the room he was staying in, now fully dressed, wearing a dark orange button vest, which was currently unbuttoned, which showed of his abs, and he was wearing a pair of light blue shorts with black flames on the bottom. Since he loved his Amaterasu ability, Naruto began walking down the hallway, with his hands resting behind his head and his eyes closed. To the untrained eye it would look like he had dropped his guard, but that was not the case. Since he is in Uzumaki he can sense other people's haki chakra, which made his observation haki that much more powerful tenfold. One of Naruto's eyes opened slowly as he picked up on a shadowy figure dashing through the hallways, but it seemed that whoever it was had their sight set on him. Naruto then heard a sword being drawn and then suddenly, squelch. Naruto looked up in shock at the person being none other than Kushina, but then he smiled sadly at her poof shadow clone. She thought in surprise, having not seen that jutsu in a long time. However, before she could recover from her shock, Naruto appeared behind and kicked her forwards, causing her to stumble slightly. She growled slightly as she turned around to slash at his neck, but she did one thing she should not have, she looked him in the eyes. Tsukiyomi. Then her world went black. World of Tsukiyomi. Kushina was currently unable to move as she was being held hostage by a tree, as its branches and roots were currently wrapped tightly around her arms, legs and waist, preventing her from moving. Although just as she was about to try and break free, Naruto appeared in front of her, or as she knew him as Minato. She snarled at him angrily, Minato, you bastard, let me go. Naruto could only sigh as he rubbed the bridge of his nose. She may be his mother and a MILF of one at that, but she was quite stubborn. He then looked up at her with a raised eyebrow. I'm not my father, he says. Naruto watches her go through different sets of emotions ranging from anger, confusion to realization. You can't be my Sachi. He is in another world of the Elam. She was cut off by Naruto Element Nations. Naruto says with a slight smile. Yeah, I know, I was brought to this world as well, after we killed the teamer Sasuke, since he was too obsessed with his own version of peace, which was a load of BS, and before you try to deny me again, the Kyuubi is still with me, but I know him as Kurama, he said as he took a breath from his long explanation. Kushina then raised her own delicate eyebrow. Kurama. I thought her name was Kurumi, she said as Naruto's mind did a loop and all kinds of twirls and backflips, as he then narrowed his eyes before smirking, which caused Kushina to shiver at the look with a bit of arousal, as her panties became slightly damp. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto walked along the grassy fields of his mindscape as he sees the giant foxer Vixen, as he now knows with a slightly frown why had she kept this from me for so long. Even during outfight with Madara, she did not bother telling me, he says as his demon side tells him to find ways to punish her for lying to him. However, he shakes his head of those disturbing arousing thoughts. He can see that Kurumi is asleep on top of a small hill, with her tails tucked under her for comfort. Naruto walks towards her. Hey Kurama, he says with a way to innocent smile directed at the Vixen. Said Vixen slowly opened her eyes and looked at her partner, though got slightly nervous at the look he was giving her, and it also got her slightly wet. Oh hey Naruto, what did you want? She asks as his smile ceased to wilt and his fox features now showing with his 9 tails swaying behind him. Human form now, he says the last part in a more demonic voice, but the Kyuubi had her eyes widen in slight fear. Does he know? She thought as she tries to play it off. What are you talking about? I don't have. She was cut off again by Naruto. Don't make me repeat myself. Kurumi, Naruto says with a snarl at her, causing her to gasp. H, how do you know? She asks him while trembling slightly. Kushina made a slip up. He sees her head slump, and then her whole body then gets covered in a bright light. The bright light then takes a human silhouette. If Naruto was not so pissed off at her, he would have had a nosebleed while his demon instincts were roaring at him to take her. She was beautiful. She had curves in all the right places, her breasts were perky, and if he had to guess, around DT in size or about the same as Kushina's, which was around the same. Her ass was plump and just oh so smackable. Her hair was a orange-red color that went down just below her ass. Her eyes were slit red with a heart-shaped face, and finally the things that made her not human was the fact that she had fur on her hands and legs, she had 9 orange tails swaying behind her, and she had ears on top of her head that was the same color as her hair. So mind telling me why you never told me, he says as he got out of his shocked state and folds his arms, while also trying not to stare as she was completely naked, which seemed to make the Kyuubi embarrassed. I was going to tell you after the battle with Madara and Sasuke, she says with a stutter with her head held down in shame slightly. Then why did you not tell me over the years that we have been on this world? He asks her with a deadpan while she just shrinks in on herself. I thought why you would not accept me, she says more shyly, which shocked Naruto slyly. Accept you as a what? A woman. He asks her as his voice reverts back to normal while she nodded slightly. Naruto sighed as he rubbed his forehead. He asked Kyuubi to show him all of her forms, which turned out to be 3 kinds. One was her human form like his, which removed the fur from her hands and arms and hid her tails and ears as well. Her second was the one he had just seen, and the other was what he would describe as a furry or an anthro in other people's cases, though he found it oddly hot for her anthro form. She was basically an orange fox that stood on its hind legs. She has paws, snout, next everything you would find on a canine, although the only difference was that she had the hump physique. She still had breeds, though her whole body was covered in fur. And if you want to know what her anthro form looks like, then just PM me or ask in a review when he's seen it. And her last form was the one that she always used. Naruto looked down at her as she was slightly smaller than him when in her hybrid form, which was the one he was currently in. So you thought would have found you ugly when I seen these forms and that I wouldn't want to be anywhere near you. He asks as she just nods again, slightly tearful. Naruto sighs as he wraps his arms around her waist and rests his chin on her head. I find you beautiful. My demon side was close to coming out and tearing you to shreds, and I don't mean the bloody kind of way, he says slightly huskily on the last part, which caused her to blush slightly. So you want to be with me? She asked with hope in her eyes as he chuckles and leans down and captures her lips in his own, which caused her eyes to widen slightly, though after a few seconds she closed them slowly and wrapped her arms around his neck to get more access to the kiss, while Naruto's arm slid around her waist as he slid his tongue at the entrance of her mouth, causing it to part slightly. His tongue then darted into her mouth, causing her knees to buckle slightly at the kiss and moan slightly as his arms gripped and fondled her ass slightly, although after a few moments they pulled away, both slightly flush, though Naruto had a smirk on his face. That answer you question? He asks, though all she could do was nod dumbly, which caused him to chuckle slightly. After a few minutes he faded away. I'll see you on the sunny Kurumi-chan, he says as he fades away, leaving a blushing yet happy Vixen, though if he stayed a little longer, he would have seen the puddle that had formed under her legs, which caused her to blush more. She replies in a slight daze. World of Tsukiyomi. Ashina noticed that Naruto had faded back into existence before her very eyes as he smiled at her. Hey Ka-chan just went to see Kurumi, he says with a smile, which caused her to tear up slightly. Are you really my Sachi? She asks, which caused Naruto to almost want to hug her to death at how cute she looked. Yeah Ka-chan, the only way I don't look like my father is because of my whisker marks and my blue-tipped hair, he says with a chuckle as the trees let her go. Knowing that she now believed him Sachi-kun, she wailed out as she ran towards him and began to cry into his chest. I was transported here after the Kyuubi attack as the seal that your dad used sent me to this world, though I was changed into a Hanyo. After the remaining yokai of the Kyuubi had nowhere to go, so it fused with me. The next thing I know is I wake up in this world. It's also the reason I don't look a day over 20. I believe that Makoto came here as Itachi-chan sent her here using an advanced Kamui, which caused him to never be able to use Kamui again, she says as Naruto's eye widened slightly. Wow, I always wondered why he never used that jutsu when he had the Mangekyo Sharingan. Ashina then narrowed her eyes at Naruto, slightly speaking of the Sharingan, how did you get the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan? She asked while Naruto gulped nervously, which seemed to spike her curiosity even further. Will you see, do you know who your father is? He asks as she shakes her head negative. My mother was the Uzukage at the time, and whenever I asked her, she said she would tell me when I became a Jonin, although I was never able to make the rank due to the land of whirlpools being wiped out, she says sadly, as Naruto now knew why her mother never told her. Your father was Madara-chan, he says, causing her eyes to widen, although her anger spiked slightly. Naruto then got an idea, but he knew his mother was not going to like it. Ka-chan, Naruto says as tears run down his eyes, causing her to gasp, wondering what was wrong. He then materialized a knife in his hand. I don't want to be related to that man, he says as he stabs himself in the gut repeatedly. Naruto. She screams as tears well up in her eyes as he takes the knife off of him, but Naruto had a hidden smirk as he sees a full matured Sharingan in her eyes. Naruto then stands up as his wounds heal up as he wraps his arms around his mother. Sorry about that Ka-chan, he says sadly, which caused her worry and sadness to wither away into confusion. What do you mean? She asks, still trembling slightly. I did that so you would awaken your Sharingan, he says with a smile, which caused her to gasp. Naruto then materialized a full mirror as she looks at her new eyes. I have the Sharingan database, she says excitedly, though she cursed slightly at the verbal tick. She thought she got rid of it. Ashina then turned to Naruto with a glare and bonked him on the head, though her hand hurt more than what it hurt him. Ow, what's your head made out of? She asks, holding her steaming hand that was now red due to her hitting Naruto on the head, which caused him to chuckle. It's made out of good old hockey, he says playfully, which caused her to pout cutely. Not fair, she whined, which made Naruto just want to kiss her all over. Bad Naruto, she is your mother, though why does the thought of that turn me on? He wondered, slightly worried at the kinky though he had of his mother. Okay Ka-chan, I'm going to end the genjutsu now, he says with a smile while doing the infamous Kakashi wave before shimmering out of existence once again. Kashin just waves at him while testing out her new Sharingan by repeatedly turning it on and off. Real world 1 second later. Ashina blinked a few times as she realized she was no longer in the genjutsu, though she did notice that Naruto was looking in her eyes with his eternal Mangekyo Sharingan still active, but before she could get a closer look, his eyes changed back to their normal blue slits that he always has, though as she turned her attention to what he was wearing she blushed slightly, although as she was about to ask her where he was off to another shadowy figure appeared next to her. Kushi-chan, are you okay? She asked as Kushina looks at the figure and smiles. I'm fine Makoto, I just found out that this is my Sachi from the Element Nations, she says with a giggle which causes her to look at Naruto. Naruto. Do you know if Sasuke came with you? She asked hopefully. Naruto flinched slightly at the question since he really did not want to tell his ex-best friend's mother that he had killed him since he tried to take over the Element Nations. Naruto. She says in a more demanding tone since she noticed him flinch a moment ago, which causes him to sigh as he begins to tell her what had happened after the Uchiha massacre, why Itachi did what he did, and all about the Fourth Shinobi War. Naruto looked at Makoto as she began to tremble as she clutched onto Kushina and began to sob to her, muttering words to herself. Naruto had a frown on his face since he didn't like to make women cry. He looked at his mother and smiled sadly at her as he leaned down and whispered in her ear, I'll see you at the party, but it looks like Makoto needs someone right now, he says as he kisses her cheek, causing her to blush slightly as she held a crying Makoto in her arms. She could only mutter a simple okay as Naruto made his way to said party. Naruto stepped into the large room which appeared to be submerged in water, however there was different rooms floating in the water with bubble around them and the rest of the straw hats were inside them. Naruto chuckled as he made his way to one of the bubbles by using his own personal one. Hey guys, he says with a smile as he noticed what the others were doing. Luffy was busy eating as much meat as he could fit in his mouth. Naruto was surprised he hadn't choked on one of the bones, yet Zoro was busy drinking sake or anything that was alcohol related while he was calling out to the shitty cook while also having a drinking contest with the king. Sanji was busy swooning over the amount of mermaids that were currently surrounding him, giggling and mumbling with him. Some of them even went over to Naruto, causing him to smirk almost smugly. If Sanji had seen him, he told the mermaids he would be right with them. As he walked towards the two ladies in the crew, Robin was currently using her devil fruit power as a means to multitask, as she had her main set of arms around one of the many books that she liked to read, while the other arms sprouting out of her limbs were currently holding what looked to be a cup of tea or coffee. Nami was currently betting money with one of the princes on who would pass out. Nami was betting on Zoro, while the prince was betting on his father, however he chose the wrong choice as Neptune fell backwards out cold, causing Zoro to smirk, Nami to cheer, and said prince to sulk in a corner, muttering about lightweights. Once Naruto made his way over to the girls who now noticed him, they both blushed at his new attire since they could see his abs, causing him to smirk slightly while finding it cute that both of them blushed since they rarely blush around any other person other than him. Hey Nami-chan, hey Robin-chan, he says with a smile as he lays down on one of his comfy seats with his head rested back. Nami and Robin both smiled as they noticed Naruto walking towards them. Hey Naruto-kun, they both say in unison, causing him to chuckle slightly while they both glare at each other for a few moments. Robin then turns her attention back to Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Why are you so late anyways? She asks as Nami nods as she adds on, yeah, you missed the singer who was on a few moments ago, she says, while Naruto just smiles at them. Sorry, I had to take care of some personal business, he says, causing them both to raise an eyebrow at Naruto since there it got them even more curious about where he was. However, they decided not to push the subject. Naruto was currently laying down on one of the comfy sofas as he watched a party go on. However, what he was not expecting was an encore for the singer that was there before he arrived, although this time the singer decided to sing a romantic song which caused Naruto to have a slight gleam in his eye, which did not go unnoticed by the two female straw hats. As the music was about to start, couples stepped or swam onto the dance floor with a partner as Naruto stood up and walked towards Nami and Robin and bowed to them slightly in a gentlemanlike manner as he held out his hand to them with a smirk. May I have this dance? He says to them, causing them both to blush slightly and nod as they do rock paper scissors to see who would win. Shit, Nami whispers a curse as she loses, while Robin giggles and takes Naruto's hand as he leads her to the dance floor as he does a hand sign and a clone appears in front of Nami, causing her to smile and takes the clone's hand as he also leads her to the dance floor. As the music was about to start, couples stepped or swam onto the dance floor with a partner as Naruto stood up and walked towards Nami and Robin and bowed to them slightly in a gentlemanlike manner as he held out his hand to them with a smirk. May I have this dance? He says to them, causing them both to blush slightly and nod as they do rock paper scissors to see who would win. Nami whispers a curse as she loses, while Robin giggles and takes Naruto's hand as he leads her to the dance floor as he does a hand sign, and a clone appears in front of Nami, causing her to smile, and takes the clone's hand as he also leads her to the dance floor. On the dance floor, Naruto had both of his arms around Robin's waist, while Robin had her arms around Naruto's neck. She blushed slightly at the closeness as the music began to start. The clone and Nami were in a similar position, though Nami had one hand on his chest and the other around his neck. Song started. Hello. With Naruto and Robin, they began to step and rock towards the music. Naruto smirked as he recognized the song. Hey, I know this song, he says to himself, while Robin now had her head resting on Naruto's shoulder. I'm sorry we haven't been able to spend more time together, or at least less than what I would have wanted to, he whispered in her ear, causing her to shiver slightly as she felt Naruto rub her stomach and waist while ghosting over her ass a few times. It's fine since this dance more than makes up for the wait, she says as she lets out a small sigh as she went closer to Naruto so that her breasts were pressing up against his chest, causing them both to have a tinge of pink on their cheeks as Naruto smirked. Wow, your breasts are soft, he says quietly, not realizing what he had said, causing her to blush but smirk slightly. Why don't you feel how soft they are? She whispers seductively in his ear, causing him to shiver slightly as his hands slide into her pants slightly to grip her ass by the skin. Sorry, they're occupied, he teases with a smirk as he sees her gasp when he grips them. Naruto and Nami were in a similar position as Naruto groped Nami's ass, which Naruto thought he would have to compare both later. Once he revived the memories of the clone, Nami gasped as she felt Naruto grope her ass, causing him to smirk at her. I've wanted to do that for a while now, he says with a slight chuckle as she raises an eyebrow. Why? She asks teasingly as Naruto's smirk seems to widen. Have you seen what you wear? He says with a slight chuckle. Your body is just asking me to grope you, he says as they continued their dancing, while Nami was blushing slightly as she danced along with him as his hands went back around her waist. Up on a balcony that had a perfect view of the party, Kushina and Makoto are watching as they had slightly jealous looks on their face as they seen what Naruto was doing with the females of the Straw Hats, and they wanted to be in the same position of them, though Kushina was berating herself, saying that it was her son, while nothing was stopping Makoto from feeling jealous. Song finish. Naruto smirked as he whispered in Robin's ear. Watch this. Naruto looked towards his clone, who whispered something similar in Nami's ear as he popped, causing her to frown slightly, wondering why he popped as she looked towards the real Naruto, who walked towards the stage. Well, the music just finished as Naruto walked towards the singer. Would it be okay if I had a turn? He said with a smile, causing the singer to shrug and give him the mic. Just don't sound like a sea cow and you will be fine, she said as she went for her break. Naruto did his usual hand sign for the shadow clone as two popped into existence, causing smoke to cover the stage as lights shine on. Naruto did a few other hand signs as he used some yin-yang release as a guitar, and drums appeared in front of both the clone, while Kurumi appeared in a puff of smoke and jumped on top of a stool in her kid form and wearing what looked like red shades, smirking like she owned the place, causing Naruto to sweat drop but smirk along with her as the clone strummed the strings on the guitar. Next song start. Net dance to battle Believe in myself. Naruto put the mic on a stand and leaned forwards. Believe in myself. And my dream this world. It will never end. I'll chase it. I'll speed up. Speed up. I'm running faster. Chasing what's in front of me. Now I'll just believe in myself. Kurumi bobbed her head slightly as the audience began to cheer and dance to the music, while Nami and Robin smiled slightly since they never knew he had such a good voice. You light my fire. Your touch ignites the flames in my heart. Makes me want to feel your emotion. Whatever will be, will be. Our hearts are crashing waves. And our souls are vast like an ocean. But the strongest tides will drown our sorrows. Take my hand and tell me. Are you ready to play fair? The drummer's hands becomes a blur as he begins to hammer at the drums like he was a professional, and the guitarist clone was no different as he was strumming the strings like he had used them for years. All the Narutos now looked a lot different than usual as their hair was a lot wider. The real Naruto's hair now covered one of his eyes, though he was planning on putting his hair back to normal after the song. Believe in myself. And my dream this world. It will never end. I'll chase it. I'll speed up. Speed up. The Straw Hats were now cheering along with them while Brook began to play the piano parts of the song, though God knows how he knew the parts to the song, though he didn't really care at the moment. Believe in myself. You're not alone now. And our future is near. It's coming. Let's speed up. Speed up. I'm running faster. Chasing what's in front of me. Now I'll just believe in myself. Song finish. Naruto made the clones puff out of existence as he gave a slight bow, while the crowd were cheering, while the females were swooning much to Sanji's dismay, as Naruto stepped to the stage, only to be glumped by Nami and Robin, as he caught them in his arms with a chuckle. "I didn't know you could sing, Naruto," Nami said, causing him to smirk. "When you have clones who can learn just as much as the owner, before the knowledge is sent to the original, I kind of abused that power," he says with a slight chuckle. He looked up at a certain balcony and winked to Kushina and Makoto, who were currently in shock, though they blushed as they realized he knew they were there. After the party, Naruto can be seen looking at the sunny, which now has a new coat over it, as he rested against the soft grass. "It looks like we will be leaving Fishman Island soon, Ka-chan," he said as Kushina sat down next to him, as she rested her head on his shoulders. "Hey Ka-chan," he said as she responded with a hum. As he looked at her with a grin, "Do you have a bounty?" he says out loud, causing her to smirk and look at him smugly. 380 million belly. "But it's okay son, I know you won't be as high as your Ka-chan," she says with pride, but Naruto just chuckles as he hands her his own wanted poster that he had sealed away as she looks at it. "Let's see here, Kushina was unable to form words as she felt a hand on her shoulder. "Sorry Ka-chan, but you can't beat me. 410 million, he said with a proud smirk as he raised his eyebrow at her. "How did you get the bounty? Anyways?" he asked as she recovered from her shock and scowled slightly. "One of those celestial dragons tried to get me to become one of his slaves and bear him strong children. Let's just say he won't be having children anytime soon, or ever for that matter," she says as she begins to giggle, causing Naruto to sweat drop as he steps away from her. "Now I know where I got my sadistic nature from," he says to himself as he smiles at her. "Hey Ka-chan, do you and Makoto-chan want to come to the new world with us?" he asked as he gave her the puppy dog eyes, causing her to look away as she almost wanted to squeal and glump Naruto, so all she did was nod. Naruto can be seen on the sunny with Kushina, Makoto, Luffy, Zoro and Frankie as they wait for the rest of the Straw Hats. "Well, there seemed to be a party gathering around the ship. Wait, so let me get this straight. Luffy called Big Mom fat and said that Fishman Island was now under his protection," he says, causing Luffy to snicker and Zoro to nod, causing Naruto to shake his head slightly. "Should have known," he said to himself. He was about to introduce the two other females. He was interrupted by a sound of Nami Icewind as Sanji jumped onto the ship, although he suddenly noticed the two new females as he went over to the redhead in a gentlemanlike manner. "Hello mademoiselle," as he takes her hand and kisses it, not noticing the shadow looming behind him, cracking its knuckles. Sanji shivered slightly at the tone of voice as he turned around, and the next thing he knew he was thrown in a gay brothel with a few broken bones and a black eye as Naruto grinned and began acting innocent. He then noticed that the rest of the Straw Hats had returned. "Okay, now that everyone is here, it is time to introduce you all to my mother, Kushina Uzumaki, or some of you may know her as the Crimson Death, due to her bounty," causing them to gasp at him. The chapter end. What if Naruto arrives at Marineford in One Piece harem? End here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.